Chapter 677. They had made ample preparations for this wave of attack. The suicidal charge that Unsworn Sword led was not in vain. With reference to reigning the world's experience, the formation of this charge was quite spread out. They would rather have a portion of the players not squeeze onto the battlefield than give themselves an advantage over the catapults on top of the city wall. Going against the flow, a chain of fireballs shot into the sky, and the charge began. As expected, the system was still the same as before. Once they were within that distance, the rock throwing began, and the boulders began to fall. However, the players were already prepared. They stared at the sky and used their eyesight to pick out the boulders one by one, and calmly dodged them. Of course, accidents were inevitable, but compared to the first time when a boulder fell and turned into a pile of white meat pancakes, this time was much better. Everyone even felt that the boulders were no longer a threat. Due to the fact that they were scattered, the crowd did not look as turbulent as before, but they were still charging forward at a very fast speed. The guild leaders in the team were all very excited. Before the battle, everyone vowed to take down the world with one strike. As the distance closed, the catapults began their mutated attack, and gravel rained down like rain. Although this attack did not deal as much damage as the boulders, it still smashed the players into a sorry state. Firstly, there was no way to dodge, and secondly, the boulders that were as big as their faces were smashed into their faces from a high altitude. They had to leave some kind of memento. Use the boulders as cover, and pay attention to hiding. Unsworn Sword instructed in the guild leaders' team channel. There were around 800 guild leaders, and even if they formed a team, they wouldn't be able to form that many people. However, there was no need to worry, they just had to form a few more teams. The team that Unsworn Sword was in was basically an elite guild in Cloud City. Gu Fei and Sword Ghoul were watching the former top 100 guild rankings. Most of the current leaders of the top 100 thugs were in Unsworn Sword's team. They were the main force for this assault. Everyone had foreseen this scene, and even without the reminder from the Sword of No Oath, they humbly learned the experience gained from being cannon fodder in the 4 seas. So they all hid behind the boulder, bruised and swollen. There were a lot of people charging in, and the boulder really couldn't protect so many people. However, the number of people participating in the battle was just right. Everyone took what they needed and provided cover. From the perspective of Cloud City, the huge battlefield was filled with people just now, but in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. It was amazing. Everyone be careful. The stealthed assassins are coming. Unsworn Sword reminded. Many of them were cursing in their hearts. Nonsense. Everyone had seen all of this with their own eyes, and there was no need for Unsworn Sword to remind them. Right now, there was a group of people hiding behind each boulder. There were people of all classes, let alone one assassin. Even if there were a few of them, they wouldn't be afraid. A team with a reasonable combination of classes would have a relatively easy time fighting an army of a single class. The gravel continued to fall, the system not caring about the ammo at all. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the hidden assassin to appear. A few players with anti-stealth skills or equipment all used their own methods, hoping to gain the upper hand. But no. Previously, reigning the 4 seas had lost to this wave of assassins, but now that they were prepared, these assassins were unwilling to appear. Why aren't they coming out? The players whispered to each other. A voice came from the guild leader's party channel. Guild leader Unsworn, why aren't the assassins coming out yet? Unsworn Sword was quite depressed. When he said a few words, everyone complained that he was talking about things that everyone already knew. Now that he wasn't saying anything, everyone was asking him what was going on. But how would Unsworn Sword know? He was just here to be cannon fodder. It wasn't like he had scouted the system's brain. He could only helplessly say, "Let's wait and see. Everyone be on guard." And so, after a few minutes, the situation was still the same. The stealthed assassins couldn't be seen at all. Cough. It's probably because we have too many people this time, so it's not convenient to send assassins. Unsworn Sword said. Fuck, how can that be? The guild leaders didn't believe it. What do we do now? Do we continue charging or what? The players were hiding behind the boulder to free up their hands to deal with this wave of stealthed assassins' sneak attack. Otherwise, with the support of a large number of priests, the players would still be able to charge through the boulder attack. Once they took a short step, the catapult's attack would also stop. The pitiful information that raining the Four Seas cannon fodder had obtained was quickly used up. The players had basically passed the catapult stage. As for those stealthed assassins, no one knew if they would suddenly appear in the next second. Seeing that things weren't as they had imagined, many people's hearts began to beat faster. Their initial courage to charge forward was gone. To charge forward bravely, one needed a direction. And now there was no one to point them in. What are you afraid of? Charge. Some of the players' blood hadn't cooled yet. Let's wait and see. Some of the players' blood hadn't even heated up yet. Still waiting. If we wait any longer, this boulder will be smashed into pieces by them. Someone said. The rubble continued to fall onto the boulder, making loud bangs. The players hiding behind the boulder could feel the boulder shaking from the impact. Even a drop of water could pierce through a boulder, not to mention the continuous impact. Who knew when this boulder would collapse? And when that happened, another boulder would replace it, turning all the players hiding here into pancakes. Sword without oath and against the current, the two players vying to become the leaders of Cloud City didn't make a sound. This was a difficult time. This was the moment when the quality of a leader was reflected. Everyone was out of ideas, and they would listen to you as soon as you gave the order. But this also meant that if you made a correct judgment, you were wise. If you made a wrong judgment, you were an idiot. No one was willing to be an idiot. Moreover, in this situation, there was no judgment at all. It was just a blind guess. If you made a wrong guess, you would be an idiot. Sword without oath and against the current were both smart people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to lead their guilds to this extent. Therefore, at this crucial moment, the two hesitated at the same time. They each looked for someone they trusted to discuss. What should we do? In the end, they all had their own ideas. Some suggested retreating first. Let's challenge them again, and carry out a wave of probing attacks to thoroughly understand this system. This was the opinion of the Conservative Party. I suggest charging. Even if we retreat now, no one can say if it's the right move, so it's not a smart idea. Why don't we take a gamble and charge forward? If we can get an advantage, it'll be the right move. If we can't get any advantage, we'll at least learn more about the system and not die in vain. This was the opinion of the Gambler Party. Let the trash charge first, let's see. This was the opinion of the party that didn't treat the noobs as humans. Everyone had their own opinions. The two guild leaders couldn't come up with a decision. In the end, someone in the guild leader channel exploded. Fuck, should we advance or retreat? Why isn't anyone saying anything? Fuck, you guys might be afraid, but I'm not. I'll charge first if you want to follow me. The overall situation was broken by such an inexplicable person. This person was also a guild leader with hundreds of troops under his command. With a call in the guild channel, many people jumped out from behind the boulders. This guild leader had a heroic temperament, but he was not a hot-blooded priest. He also wanted to shoot fireworks into the sky like against the current, but he didn't have that skill, so he could only shoot a holy ball into the sky. The glowing white ball flew into the sky and floated for a few steps before being blown away by the wind. Almost no one saw it, but many people jumped out from behind the boulders. This was real. Brothers, charge! This guild leader waved his staff and roared, but was met with a rock. This guild leader was really a tough person. He spat out the rock that had smashed into his mouth, and used a healing spell on his face. Then he puffed out his chest and relied on his healing to walk forward. If a priest really took the hit, he wouldn't be able to take it. It wasn't just a problem of limited mana. If the rock hit the body, it would interrupt the skill, so he had to find time to cast the healing spell. It was extremely demanding on his awareness, technique, and time. This guild leader's stubbornness was mainly to create an official image and boost everyone's morale. As expected, his actions made his guild members feel proud. Some who hadn't completely jumped out from behind the boulders couldn't help but turn around to show off to the players from other guilds. See that? Our guild leader is a real man. Kill. Under the encouragement of their guild leader, the players of the guild all charged out. The priests, under the cover of the warriors and other classes with thick skin, healed their comrades who had been hit. Everyone braved the storm of rocks and charged forward. Soon after, the second, third, and fourth guilds were infected. One after another, people rushed out of the boulders and charged forward with the same attitude. The stalemate was finally resolved, but Unsworn soared against the current and the others did not feel good about it. This was the benefit of not having to worry about anything. This guild leader clearly didn't have the attitude of a leader like the two of them. He wouldn't worry about a mistaken judgment that would damage his image. He was hot-blooded and did things based on his instincts. He didn't rely on orders but on his own actions to infect others. Sigh, you should have done this earlier. Unsworn Sword slapped his thigh in frustration, sighing because he didn't think of this move. Against the current didn't feel this way, because this move didn't suit him. He was a mage. If he jumped out, he would be smashed in 2 or 3 hits. He wouldn't even be able to finish a sentence. Even if he had a priest with him, he would speak, rocks would be smashed, and the priests beside him would be busy like dogs. His momentum was completely gone. In any case, more and more guilds were rushing out, and no one bothered to ask the 2 bosses what they meant. In the end, even the 2 guilds were getting restless and asking for permission to fight. Guild leader, let's go. Go. Unsworn Sword immediately ordered. He was waiting for someone in the guild to suggest it. Otherwise, if he gave the order, it would seem like he was infected by the little guild leader. How embarrassing would that be? Charge. As these 2 big guilds joined the battle, the other guilds who were watching on the sidelines didn't hesitate anymore and charged out. The team charged forward against the rocks. Some people would fall in the process, but it didn't matter. A large number of people would quickly catch up. This was a strategy that had been discussed long ago. Rely on infinite resurrections to drag down the system. Brothers, it's usually the system that bullies us. Today, let's kill them. Someone shouted in the middle of the charge. Everyone who heard it agreed that it was a good idea and agreed. The players were finally able to withstand the fierce attack of the gravel wall. The armored warriors with excellent equipment were right in front of them, and they were already taking powerful strides towards the players. Now's the time. Everyone charge. Tear open a path. We'll talk after we enter the gate. Someone shouted. Others responded. The players pounced on the guards. Tens of thousands of close combat battles unfolded in the vast wilderness in front of the north gate of Cloud City. What's the difference between this time and the last? Under the north gate, Gu Fei and Sword Demon watched the battle from the doorway. In Gu Fei's eyes, there was no difference between this battle and the previous one. The players had been quietly planning for so long. Why was it still like this? No, there's still a difference. Look. Sword Demon pointed. Here, there, and over there are people waiting. They didn't swarm forward, but went into battle one by one. These 3 points are definitely connected to the resurrection point. The people who come out of the resurrection point won't immediately rush into battle. They will regroup here, wait, observe, and enter the battle in a regular pattern. They want to pull this battle into a cycle. The players will constantly die and resurrect to fill the cycle and exhaust the system. The system won't spawn new recruits? Gu Fei asked. I don't know yet, but this tactic can at least enter a stalemate with the system, and then adjust according to the specific situation. This is quite reasonable, Sword Demon said. Actually, there aren't just 3. Look, there's another one over there. Gu Fei pointed at the 4th spot on the battlefield. In fact, Sword Ghost had already noticed this a long time ago. After a moment of silence, he said, that area is for cannon fodder. I can see that they've placed the weaker players in that area. That area probably won't cause much damage to the system. They're just relying on their numbers to hold back some of the system's forces. The deciding factor is these 3 areas. You can't say that. If they can't hold back the system's forces, and the system guards are freed up, I think these 3 areas will be very ugly, right? Gu Fei said. But the problem is that they don't have any combat skills. They just keep going up to die. As long as they run more diligently, there's no reason for accidents to happen, Sword Demon said. That thief and archer are really unlucky. After the warrior and priest die once, they'll probably die 2 or 3 times. Gu Fei sighed. As the 2 were chatting, Little Ray was pushing the goods out again. When he saw the two of them, he naturally stopped and chatted for a while. In front of them, tens of thousands of players were fighting with their lives on the line, while the three of them were chatting merrily, creating a very heartless scene. You two busy yourselves, I'm going. After chatting for a while, Little Ray pushed his small cart and went to deliver the goods. Gu Fei was worried at this time. This sword of no oath is really nowhere to be found. Yeah, they're not even waving the flag. Sword Demon nodded. Before, the players didn't know what to do and wanted to raise the flag to make their guild famous. Only after entering the battlefield did they realize the seriousness of the situation. How could they still have the mood to play around with these things? They were all focused on killing the enemy. In this vast sea of people, even if we sneak in to find it, we don't know when we'll find it, Gu Fei said. How troublesome. Even the Windchaser emblem is useless. Sword Demon also tried the Windchaser emblem, but at this special time, it wasn't counted as a wanted quest. If only I could send a message to you, Tian. Gu Fei was filled with emotion. He missed the days of having spies. This sentence reminded Sword Demon. He slapped his forehead and said, This city war is mainly against people with guilds. Then what role do you think those without guilds are playing? Those without guilds, doesn't that mean they don't have a role? If they don't have a role, then they aren't considered enemies or me. Why can't I send a message? Sword Demon said. Who are you talking about? Gu Fei asked. Brother Yu. Brother Yu doesn't have a guild, so why is he considered an enemy force that can't send messages? Then what about him and these guys outside? Are they also enemies? Sword Demon said. This. Gu Fei felt that this was a bit confusing and confused. In any case, I've tried to send a message to Brother Yu, but I can't send it. Gu Fei said. I've also tried. Could it be that Brother Yu, without guilds, is classified as a third-party force and can't communicate with either of us? Sword Demon said. Then it shouldn't be written as enemies. Gu Fei said. How about we find Brother Yu? Sword Demon said. How do we find him? Gu Fei was at a loss. He's still in the game at this time. Other than leveling in the wild, what else can he do? I know where he's leveling. Sword Demon said. Even if we find him, what can we do? Gu Fei asked. I just suddenly feel that this third-party force might have some tricks. Sword Demon said. Okay, then let's go find Brother Yu. Gu Fei nodded. It wasn't hard for the two of them to sneak out. They covered their faces and squeezed into the chaotic battle. Either side wouldn't attack them anyway. The main reason they covered their faces was because they were afraid that someone would recognize them. If their identities were exposed, the two of them firmly believed that the Han family young master wouldn't be kind enough to help them hide their identities. The two of them quickly passed through the chaotic battlefield. Gu Fei even tried to coincidentally bump into Sword Without Oath. If he didn't bump into Sword Without Oath, he could bump into Time Reflected. In the end, he could only be disappointed. Sword Demon couldn't be more familiar with the leveling area in Cloud City. He quickly brought Gu Fei to the area where Brother Yu often leveled. On the day of the city war, the leveling area seemed a bit deserted. Although the players who didn't play the city war had nothing else to do besides leveling, if they had nothing to do, they could choose not to play. Games weren't everything in life. Sword Demon looked for Brother Yu one by one in the leveling area. Gu Fei was unrestrained and shouted, Brother Yu, are you there? Who's calling me? Behind a tree, a person held a small book in one hand and a pen in the other. He twisted his body and poked his head out. Chapter 678. Good evening. Gu Fei and Sword Demon waved at Brother Yu. Brother Yu's mouth almost dropped to the ground. After a while, he reached out to support his chin and quickly asked, Why are you guys here? Just strolling around. What about you? The city war is such a big thing. Why aren't you researching it? Why are you in the mood to train here? The two asked. I want to, but there are conditions. It's chaotic and there are rocks falling from the sky. Just running to the resurrection point is exhausting. Players resurrected after death and started over as running to the resurrection point. Although it was a completely different concept from the literal meaning. Gu Fei and Sword Demon laughed. You died. Of course. Brother Yu was depressed. This wasn't hard to understand. Although players would spontaneously form some cooperation after the battle began, this was only an emergency measure at a critical moment. For example, if one's own team's cleric had just died, and there were other cleric players nearby that they didn't know, they would call for help to heal or something. This kind of cooperation was more passive. It couldn't be said to be active cooperation. After all, the real cooperation was formed by the team that had been arranged beforehand. This way, a lone commander like Brother Yu without a guild meant that he had no one to rely on. The others had been split into groups and rushed into battle together, but he was alone in the battlefield. The system clearly did not treat this kind of third-party character as a good friend. When faced with the same attack, with Brother Yu's skills, how many attacks could he block? How many times did I die? Gu Fei asked. He still had a bit of confidence in Brother Yu's persistence. Dying once wouldn't dispel Brother Yu's enthusiasm for collecting information. 5 times. Brother Yu said. You've worked hard. Gu Fei sighed. But I found a setting that many people might not have noticed. Brother Yu said. What? Most people probably think that if they die, they'll just return to the respawn point and return to the battlefield as soon as possible. That way, they'll be able to exhaust themselves over and over again. When they die 5 times they'll know. Brother Yu shook his head and kept them guessing. What happens if I die 5 times? Gu Fei asked. After dying 5 times, the respawn camp will temporarily prohibit the player from leaving the respawn point. The arrangement is that the player's injuries are too severe, and they need to rest for 5 minutes. Brother Yu said. It's not hard to understand such a setting, but you're not a guild player. Even if you accidentally entered the city war and accidentally died 5 times, do you still need to follow this setting? Of course it wasn't me. Brother Yu quickly said. After I died 5 times, other players who had been killed 5 times like me complained at the resurrection camp, so I asked about it. I reckoned that dying 5 times for 5 minutes was just the beginning. After dying 10 times, it might even take 10 minutes. So I waited at the respawn camp, and I really did. Players who died 10 times really need to rest at the camp for 10 minutes. Brother Yu said. Gu Fei and Sword Demon looked at each other. They both thought that this setting was definitely not known by the main forces of the North Gate's Cloud City guilds. Due to the communication between the big guilds, the majority of the players participating in the city war were gathered at the Northern Gate. They had carried out an effective organization, so no one dared to rush in recklessly. After careful arrangements, they only started the second wave of official killing. It was obvious that no one had died more than 5 times. But as Sword Demon explained to Gu Fei before, the biggest key to their attrition strategy was this unlimited respawn. But this respawn actually had rules and restrictions, so it could be said that these guys' strategy had already been broken. And the information that Brother Yu had died 10 times definitely didn't come from the North Gate. Sure enough, Brother Yu came to this conclusion from the South Gate, the other side of the battlefield that was far away from the North Gate. West, south, east. Although these 3 directions of siege were in full swing, due to their lack of strength and the fact that they fought too casually, there hadn't been any breakthroughs so far. They used repeated deaths to automatically walk towards the cycle of exhaustion, but they were quickly interrupted by the rule of dying 5 times for 5 minutes, dying 10 times for 10 minutes. And this situation was still unknown to the luxurious army at the North Gate. Thinking of this, while Sword Demon was deep in thought, Brother Yu suddenly became excited. He changed to a small notebook, flipped through a few pages, picked up a pen and asked, "You too, how did you end up in the city? Hurry up and tell me." Just as Gu Fei was about to speak, Sword Demon suddenly turned his head and said, "If that's the case, this wave of attack will definitely be repelled. Even the Sword of No Oath might die. We can go to the resurrection camp and wait." "What are you guys doing?" Brother Yu was surprised. He didn't believe that these 2 people really came here randomly. Listening to Sword Demon's words, they had some intentions towards the Sword of No Oath. Gu Fei heard this and sighed. "Sword Demon, you're really kind. I mean, why don't we just ask Brother Yu to find out where the Sword of No Oath is? We'll just wait here. How did you come up with such an evil idea?" Sword Demon was speechless. "You gave me a revelation when you said that the third force might have some tricks," Gu Fei said. Wait. What are you two talking about? Tell me properly. Brother Yu interrupted the two. It's like this, Brother Yu. Simply put, because the two of us have a faction, we are now part of the system's regular army. These guilds are bandits and mobs. For example, the original ranking of the top 100 guilds in the main city is now the list of the top 100 evildoers. The two of us have chosen the Sword of No Oath, the leader of the 100 evildoers, to come and get rid of this evil for the people. Gu Fei gave a high-level summary. Brother Yu was stunned. In the end, he said, "That's how you announced it? I heard the mobilization outside the city. They said that your system is a tyrannical rule, and the guilds want to overthrow your rebel army. Each for their own master, each for their own master," Gu Fei said. What nonsense! Sword Demon was on the verge of collapse. Sword Demon, why don't you say it? Brother Yu felt that Gu Fei might be talking nonsense. That's about it. Sword Demon listened to Gu Fei's description, and also felt that it was a bit ridiculous. But after thinking about it carefully, it seemed that it was all the original text in the system. However, Gu Fei used shocking and derogatory terms like bandits, mobs, 100 evildoers, in the process of summarizing, which made people feel that something was wrong. It seems that this city war is like a large-scale plot, even though there's no background. Brother Yu sighed. Anything else new? Brother Yu asked. That's right, Little Ray also has a faction. It's the Trade Alliance. He also randomly joined the Trade Association, and this kid isn't even level 40. Sword Demon said. Really? We previously judged that it's possible to trigger a faction at level 40. Brother Yu said as he memorized. Could it be that his faction is a bit special? Let's look at the city war now. The quests we take are all combat type, but he's just running errands in the city, like a logistics person. Sword Demon said. You guys also have quests? Brother Yu was surprised. Of course, this assassination of Sword of No Oath was accidentally discovered by the two of us. After that, we formed a team and accepted it. In fact, we also have quests related to the faction. Oh right, Little Bottle Cap. Do you know this person, Brother Yu? He should also be the guild leader. Sword Demon said. Little Bottle Cap? Let me see. Brother Yu took out another book and flipped it open. Gu Fei and Sword Demon looked at Brother Yu with admiration. It was really too amazing he could record everything and carry it with him. This was really a hobby that had already broken away from form. It was completely a kind of consciousness. Let's say that Brother Yu summarized and recorded all the information of the guilds in Cloud City. In fact, it was of no practical use to him. Normal people wouldn't come to him to inquire about it. This was a hobby, a true hobby. The process of collecting information was beautiful, and the result of completing the information was achievement. Flipping page after page, Gu Fei and Sword Demon waited patiently until Brother Yu flipped to the last page. Finally, he found the answer. Damn, I felt like I've heard this name before. Turns out it was just recently recorded. Then this is a newly formed guild that I took in after we returned to Cloud City. Let me see, this is a small level 1 guild. The guild name is Soy Sauce. The current number of people is 37. The guild leader is Little Bottle Cap, level 35 Knight. After Brother Yu finished speaking, he raised his head to look at Sword Demon. It was obvious that this was an extremely inconspicuous guild. In such a big scene, it was just like his guild name, a soy sauce. He didn't know why Sword Demon would specifically ask about such a person. Sword Demon was also quite depressed. He didn't expect it to be such a super small character. This was going to be really hard to find. With Sword Demon's experience as the guild leader, reigning the 4 seas and singing wine, definitely didn't know about the existence of such a small guild. Even if they did know, they wouldn't consider bringing such a burden when forming an alliance. The biggest possibility was that Little Bottle Cap would bring his soy sauce to one of the 3 gates, east, west, and die. Give up. Gu Fei patted Sword Demon. This quest is too hard. It's much harder than killing Sword without oath. Tears streamed down Sword Ghost's face. This is a quest. Yes, this is our personal quest. Sword Demon is going to kill this one. And I was sent to Yunjiao Lake to investigate. We've already completed a quest before. Gu Fei said. Oh, what is it? Brother Yu asked. Gu Fei gave a brief explanation and added. Send our regards to Gongzi. Ha ha ha, why bother? Although Brother Yu said this, he still sent a message to Han family young master. Gongzi, Qianli and Sword Demon asked me to bring them to you. What? Hey, they're with me right now. Brother Yu said. What's going on? Han family young master asked. They said they're out for a stroll. Brother Yu used the two's exact words. Thus, Han family young master didn't reply. Gu Fei began to urge Brother Yu to carry out his evil thoughts. Hurry, Brother Yu, find out where the Sword of No Oath is. Where am I supposed to find out? Brother Yu said. Ask Yu Tian. Gu Fei said. This isn't too good, it's too much of a cheat. It's better not to make things difficult for Yu Tian. Sword Demon said. If they followed Gu Fei's plan, it wouldn't be hard to find out. Yu Tian Shunming just had to shout out the coordinates of the guild leader, and those who knew would still treat it as a secret. But with Yu Tian Shunming's relationship with Gu Fei and Sword Demon, once Gu Fei and Sword Demon succeeded, anyone with a brain would think of Yu Tian Shunming's actions. Then he would fall into a situation where he would be despised. That's true. Gu Fei was too impatient and neglected this point. Now that he was reminded by the kind Sword Demon, he realized that he really couldn't do this. It would be too unfair to others. How about we just follow my plan and defend it to the death? Sword Demon said. There are 3 revival points around here. We'll take 1 each. Gu Fei said. Brother Yu was speechless. Didn't he have too little of a presence? He didn't even ask for his opinion and counted him in. The two of them had a mission and would exchange it for rewards later. He was purely doing voluntary work. I'll take the one on the east, you take the one on the west. Brother Yu walks slowly, so we'll take the one in the middle. They had already arranged everything, but still no one asked Brother Yu for his opinion. Hey, Brother Yu finally couldn't take it anymore. What's wrong? The two of them turned their heads and looked at Brother Yu with bright eyes. Brother Yu's words were already at the tip of his tongue, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't know why it became. How do I contact the two of you? That's weird. You're a third party, so you have nothing to do with us. Why can you send messages to these people from the guild and become enemies with us? Sword Demon didn't understand. Who knows? Brother Yu spread out his hands. If we do this, doesn't that mean that you guys are also on the guild side? There are a lot of people who don't have a guild. Sword Demon said as he subconsciously sent a message to Brother Yu. He didn't expect that there was no system notification this time. While he was in a daze, Brother Yu on the other side was also surprised. What's going on? You sent it. Brother Yu was surprised as he replied. Sword Demon also received it smoothly. Both of them were at a loss. Their memories weren't blurred yet. They clearly remembered that both sides had clearly sent messages to each other after the war started, but the system told them that they were enemies. When it came to researching settings, Brother Yu was still more skilled. He thought about it and said, "Can you try to send messages to Gongzi and the others?" The two of them tried and shook their heads. No. Brother Yu analyzed. This may be the privilege of the third party. Both of you are enemies, but for us third parties, messages may be regional. If we're in the city, we can exchange messages with players in the city. If we're outside the city, we can exchange messages with players outside the city. Other than that, I can't think of any other explanation. This can be explained. But what's the point of making such a setting? Sword Demon didn't understand. Brother Yu was even more confused. Yes. What was the point of this setting? The parallel world always liked to play guessing games with players. Players with a temperament like Brother Yu were really tormented. Let me try to see if the channel can be used. Gu Fei suddenly thought of the mercenary channel and sent a message in it. In the end, it couldn't be used. That's not fair. The channel is a public channel. Since we can't use it, why can the guild people use it? Gu Fei said. Who knows? Brother Yu was thinking hard. Let's not think about it for now. Let's go to the 3 resurrection points and wait. It's been so long. I think someone should have died 5 times here, right? Gu Fei's desire to kill people was always the most urgent. Let's go. I'll go east, you go west, brother, you in the middle, Sword Demon said. The three of them chose their own direction and kept in touch from time to time. At this time, the luxurious battle in front of the northern gate really had some problems because of this unknown setting. The first to explode was the cannon fodder army. This group of weaker players were one-sidedly crushed by the system. Very quickly, someone died 5 times and experienced the 5 minutes of recovery. This situation was quickly reported to the guild leader. The guild leader then reported it to the more powerful guild leaders. Very quickly, the few guild leaders at the highest level already knew about it. This really caught them off guard. This was the true hand of God. The creator of the rules would always be above the followers of the rules. In this world, the system was the creator. Fortunately, the system still served the people. The creation of the rules was also to make it more entertaining for the followers. Otherwise, if the system really wanted to use the rules to kill the players' chances of winning would be absolutely zero. Even so, at this time, when this unknown setting surfaced, everyone felt like they had received a head-on blow. This was a direct hit to the Achilles heel of their unlimited fuel replenishment tactic. The guild leaders hurriedly passed down the order, telling everyone not to engage in unnecessary consumption. They were to be careful and try to survive as much as possible. This way, the 5 minutes could be consumed in the cycle. This wasn't too difficult for this group of powerful players, but for the cannon fodder army, a mere 5 minutes was somewhat fatal. And this army also had the largest number of people. In the beginning, they didn't know about this setting. They didn't have much effective organization on their side. In any case, they were just going to die. Everyone would just swarm forward and die casually. The number of people could guarantee that they wouldn't all die. But with this 5-minute setting, this uncontrolled death couldn't be allowed. The various large guilds realized that the cannon fodder army had become the key to victory. They no longer allowed the cannon fodder army to fight and die as they pleased. Instead, they quickly organized the cannon fodder army into organized groups and sent them to their deaths in a rhythmic manner. There were quite a few talents in the various guilds who were good at organization and command. At this time, they worked together and quickly organized the cannon fodder army. Everyone was really proud, thinking that this was the legendary turning the tide. Who would have thought that at this time, someone had broken through 10 deaths? Recovery time 10 minutes. Everyone was shocked. This was a challenge for the regular army, not to mention the cannon fodder army. The foreheads of the guild leaders were sweating again. 10 minutes might still be possible, but the rules of this setting were already very clear. With 5 deaths as a ladder, every 5 deaths would increase the recovery time by 5 minutes. Continue to consume. After 10 minutes, can you last for 15 minutes? After 15 minutes, can you last for 20 minutes? They definitely wouldn't be able to win this war if they continued to consume. Chapter 679. Guild Leader, what do we do? Almost all of the guilds said the same thing. After all, it was impossible for the entire guild to not notice the change in the situation. Yes, what do we do? At this time, Sword without oath, against the current, and the other guild leaders only wanted to curse. Most people only knew of their glory in front of others, but they didn't know that they were in a difficult situation when they needed to make a decision. This was especially true at a time like this, where a single misstep could leave a bad impression on the entire city. Both of them held their breaths and remained silent, hoping that the other party would speak first. They would rather give the other party the chance to give the order. Or like before, a hothead would pop up and make a fuss and deal with this matter. No one made a fuss. In the past, it was easy for hot-blooded youths to jump out in a stalemate. But now that the situation was more detailed, those who were easily hot-blooded would not jump out at this time, because they would feel that it was good to continue killing like this. Sword without oath and against the current were suffering, pulling their hair. Guild leader, hurry up and make a decision. We can't drag this out any longer. Some players understood that the situation was extremely unfavorable for them, and were very anxious, urging their guild leaders. The guild leaders were also very anxious, so they came over to urge even more powerful guild leaders, mainly Sword without oath and against the current. As a result, the two of them cried and cursed. This time, the two of them made up their minds and didn't want to casually make a decision, so they held a democratic meeting in the guild leaders' team chat. The democratic representatives, with the guild leaders as the main body, held their own opinions and engaged in an intense discussion. Sword without oath and against the current, these two old foxes looked on with dumbfounded expressions, hoping for a voice that would suppress everyone else. It could be said that these two guild leaders lacked courage, but it had to be said that these two guild leaders had very high standards. At this time, even if someone came out to make a decision, if they were wrong, then they would be the scapegoat. If they were right, then this person's influence might not be able to compete with the two of them. After all, the two of them had real strength, which was an important foundation in the game. Everyone, don't argue, don't argue. Listen to me. At this moment, someone said, telling the guild leaders in the chat to calm down. He wanted to make a private announcement. When Unsworn Sword and Against the Current saw this ID, their hearts skipped a beat. Black Index Finger was also the guild leader of one of the 5 major guilds. Who would have thought that this person would have the guts to speak at this time? The channel gradually quietened down. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current waited for Black Index Finger to speak. This person had the strength to stand up to them. At this time, Unsworn Sword and Against the Current were not together, but their hearts were together, and they were nervous. We have to retreat. Black Index Finger said simply after the channel went silent. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current heaved a sigh of relief. So this was just an idea. Daring to make a decision wasn't enough. More importantly, being able to come up with an idea that was courageous was what was truly courageous. For example, if Black Index Finger dared to suggest persisting in the fight or suggesting a strategy to maintain the situation and eventually win, his reputation would skyrocket today. Unfortunately, the plan he suggested was to retreat. No matter how correct and reasonable it wasn't to everyone's liking. Unsworn Sword and Against the Current knew that retreating was the best option in the current situation, but neither of them said it because they didn't want to leave the impression that they were too weak. These two weren't just focusing on the guild's strength anymore. They also had to pay attention to the guild's image. As soon as Black Index Finger said those 2 words, different voices shouted. As Unsworn Sword and Against the Current expected, they were looking down on Black Index Finger for being cowardly. Black Index Finger shouted for silence a few more times before saying, "If we continue fighting, I believe in everyone's strength. If we make careful arrangements, it won't be a problem for us to drag on for a few more hours. But the problem is, that place definitely won't last for long." That piece. Everyone knew which that piece the Black Index Finger was referring to. It was the Cannon Fodder Army. Everyone fell silent. The Cannon Fodder Army definitely couldn't be compared to the regular army. If they weren't going to fight, they were basically going to die. Although they had a lot of people, the frequency of their deaths was too high. Even after effective organization, although the death rate was suppressed, it was still several times faster than the regular army. If this continued, the regular army would collapse before the regular army. When that time came, the system would come over and provide support, breaking the balance of the regular army. Needless to say, the result would be the same. Then should we quickly transfer some people over there? Someone suggested. I'm afraid it's a little too late. Black Index Finger said. The current balance has also been prepared in advance. After a period of continuous combat, it took a lot of effort to maintain the balance. If we suddenly change it now, it's very likely that the system will collapse in one go. I think everyone understands this. So, we can only retreat. Black Index Finger concluded. Many of the previous voices fell silent this time, but an unexpected person spoke up. We can't retreat. The person who spoke was Against the Current. As Against the Current listened to Black Index Finger's words, he felt that something was wrong. On the surface, Black Index Finger was analyzing the current situation, but secretly, he was criticizing the mistake of the Cannon Fodder Army's arrangement. Because of this arrangement, the difficulty of adjusting the current situation was greatly increased. And the Cannon Fodder Army was precisely against the current's idea. The idea of rotating people to go into battle to exhaust the system was proposed by Unsworn Sword. The idea of reducing manpower and eliminating the lazy members was proposed by Black Index Finger. Against the Current originally had a key mission in hand, which was why they didn't pay much attention to the frontal attack. In the end, that important mission was gone, and the frontal battle became the only place to decide the outcome of the battle. How could Against the Current be willing to not do their part in the frontal battle plan? So they added a method of using the cannon fodder army to attract some firepower and relieve the pressure on the main army. Everyone felt that this idea was not bad, so they naturally followed it. Now that the cannon fodder army had become the key to affecting the battle, if they were to be held accountable, Against the Current, who came up with this idea, would naturally be held responsible. Black Index Finger was now analyzing the situation and directly pointed out this matter. If they retreated now, the players would naturally discuss why. So someone answered, because the cannon fodder army can't hold on any longer. So someone asked, whose fucking idea was this cannon fodder army? So someone answered again, Against the Current. With these two questions and two answers, Against the Current was enough to kill them. So he suddenly realized that they couldn't retreat. Especially when the Black Index Finger had penetrated this layer. This guy isn't trying to trick me, is he? Against the Current felt a chill down his spine. He couldn't care about anything else and immediately spoke up to stop the retreat. Against the Current was indeed a very famous guild leader in Cloud City. They were both level 6 guild leaders, but his words obviously carried more weight than Black Index Finger's. When Black Index Finger spoke, those who disagreed with him shushed him, but Against the Current stood his ground and said, what idea does guild leader Against the Current have? It's not easy for the battle to reach this point. Everyone has seen the rules of the death count. If we retreat now, all our previous efforts will be nullified, but I believe the system will record the number of deaths. The next time we fight, we will face the penalty of not being able to fight for 5, 10, or even 15 minutes after death. Instead of that, we might as well continue on our current foundation. Against the Current said. But, what about the other side? Leave that side to me. I will try my best to buy as much time as possible for everyone. Brothers, please give it your all. We must win this match in one go. Countercurrent's words were powerful and resonant, but he was feeling extremely gloomy inside. He was forcing a duck onto a perch. Since retreating would only bring him trouble, he might as well go all out now. Even if he lost in the end, there would still be people who would remember his tireless efforts. If there were a few more changes in the battle that could decide the outcome, then he would be in the limelight. There were quite a few people who supported Countercurrent's idea. Black Index Finger, who had originally suggested retreating, didn't insist on it. He simply said in the chat, since guild leader Countercurrent is so confident, why don't we give it a try? I don't think I can bear to retreat. Son of a bitch. Against the Current cursed. This guy was just mocking him. What confidence was there to talk about? Wasn't he just trying to let everyone remember that this round was entirely Against the Current's idea? Unsworn Sword wanted to be invisible, but who asked him to have such a good foundation? At this moment, there were people who really remembered him as their guild leader and asked, Guild leader Unsworn, what do you think? Why haven't you said anything? Sword of No Oath typed the word hee and said, everyone's analysis is so clear and logical that I can't even interrupt. Now that the discussion is almost over, let's do it. I won't say anything else. Son of a bitch. Against the Current was furious again. How could he not understand the Sword of No Oath? This guy loved to broadcast alone. There were times when he couldn't even interrupt. This time, he had made a fool out of himself. Then, I'll leave that side to guild leader Against the Current. The other brothers, we have to hold on and kill them. Don't let guild leader Against the Current's efforts go to waste. Unsworn Sword shouted at the end, and the other guild leaders cheered in unison. Against the Current was terrified. Guarding day and night, it was hard to guard against a thief in one's own house. At this time, if Sword of Unsworn Sword was up to no good, deliberately making a fool of himself and not putting in the effort, he would be in deep trouble. He could only hope that this guy would look at the big picture and not play around at such an important moment. against the current left anxiously. Unsworn Sword continued to command the battle. As the commander of the battle, these guild leaders would not easily let themselves die. At the very least, they would bring enough clerics. However, it was not that the guild leader's life was precious and could not die. It was just that they could not do without a commander in a group battle. On the big battlefield, the plan was set. Against the current became the leader of the cannon fodder team, and went to take up the post with tears streaming down his face. The system was still playing according to plan. Meanwhile, the elusive Gu-Fei sword demon was already moving around in the enemy's rear. "We're here." Brother Yu was the closest and was the first to arrive at the central camp. He sent a message to the two of them. Brother Yu, it's been hard on you. You can also gather some information and write a battle report or something." Gu-Fei said. "Is there a need for me to do that?" Brother Yu replied. He saw that the camp was already filled with online reporters from various websites. They were grabbing the revived players and asking them questions. "I'm almost there," Gu-Fei replied. He could already see the resurrection camp in front of him. Although there were many types of professions in the game, it was still the era of cold weapons. The camp was built very simply. There were not even any walls. There were only a bunch of messy tents. It was obvious that this was a camp. The resurrection point of this camp was even bigger than the resurrection points of the 7 professions in the city. "I'm here." Gu-Fei stepped into the resurrection point and was sending a message to the two of them. Suddenly, a strong wind blew past him. Gu-Fei didn't even have time to look. He stepped to the side and dodged. When he looked back, he saw a guy dressed like a guard. He was holding a sharp sword. The second attack had arrived. Woo woo woo. An unknown sound reverberated in the camp. The revived players in the camp were confused. Then Gu-Fei heard the guard in front of him shout, "A spy has infiltrated the camp." Gu-Fei's face was covered in tears. So this guy was an NPC. The players couldn't recognize that Gu-Fei wasn't like them, but how could the NPC not recognize him? Gu-Fei's blatant act of sneaking into the camp was immediately caught by the NPCs. When the players heard this voice, they were shocked at first. Then they became excited and asked each other, "What spy? Is it a mission?" "Yes, a mission. Hurry up and take a look." "Where's the spy? Hurry up and catch the spy." Some of these players hadn't finished recuperating and couldn't leave the camp. Some had simply died and hadn't finished recuperating. At this moment, they were all excited and ran around the camp looking for the spy. Several players instantly appeared beside Gu-Fei. Gu-Fei complained in his heart, but this NPC was strong. It wouldn't be easy for him to escape in a short period of time. Those players were obviously very eager for the mission. In the blink of an eye, they rushed forward. Gu-Fei's eyes darted in all directions. He stealthily lowered the tip of his sword, preparing to turn around and use Twin Flame Flash to clear this group of players. In the end, he heard the player at the very front say, "Brother, you're really fast." After saying that, he quickly slipped behind the NPC and viciously stabbed him in the back. He shouted, "Brothers, hurry up, don't let this guy escape." The players responded. Spells, arrows, heavy swords, and giant axes all greeted the NPC. For a moment, Gu-Fei didn't have a place to intervene. He was stunned on the spot. Empiricism was the death of people. Gu-Fei shook his head. "Who told you that a spy had to be from the system? Damn, he's dressed quite well. Brother, how did you find out that he was a spy?" Someone turned around and asked Gu-Fei while fighting. "Cough, a system notification." Gu-Fei said, "Oh, good luck, good luck." That person shouted, "Good luck." Gu-Fei nodded in response. Seeing that more and more players were rushing over, Gu-Fei didn't dare join in the fun. He guiltily retreated to the side. The players weren't the only ones who would come to catch spies. And there were definitely more than one guard in the entire camp. The system guards had also heard the news and were rushing over. At this time, Gu-Fei had already silently retreated from the camp. The system guards were truly a team of action. When they saw so many players surrounding their comrade, they didn't bother to explain themselves. Instead, they went up to help, and when they saw someone attack a guard, they immediately retaliated. The players cried out in alarm. Damn, so many spies. Help! At first, a few people wanted to take this mission alone, but seeing the situation, they couldn't do it anymore. They hurriedly began to loudly call for reinforcements. A large number of players arrived and united to eliminate the spies. Gu Fei hid in the small forest next to the camp and watched, dumbfounded. Oh no, we can't sneak into the camp. There are system guards and I'm afraid they'll discover our identities. At this time, Gu Fei received a message from Sword Demon. Sword Demon was really honest and careful. When he arrived at the camp, he observed the terrain and saw the guards. As soon as he saw the guards, he knew that this was a group of NPCs that they didn't want to deal with. NPCs all had an automatic enemy detection system. Masks and makeup didn't work. Sword Demon sent a message to Gu Fei while stealthily looking for any loopholes in the system guards. Yes, I know. Gu Fei said. You've been discovered? Sword Demon asked. Yes. How is it? It's very lively. Gu Fei said. What? Sword Demon didn't understand. Gu Fei said simply. Sword Demon was dumbfounded. There's such a thing? You can try. Gu Fei said. Isn't that too mean? Sword Demon said. I didn't do it on purpose. Gu Fei said. Then I'll do it on purpose. For the victory of defending the city. Sword Demon said. You can do it. Gu Fei said. Sword Demon had always been swift and decisive. Seeing that there was a guard in front of him, he didn't go stealthily and rushed up to attack. Sure enough, there was a woo-woo-woo sound and the guard shouted. There's a spy sneaking into the camp. The guard's shout was like a map weapon. It wasn't very loud and all the players in the camp could hear it. The reaction was exactly the same as that of Gu Fei's camp. They all shouted, What spy? What spy? Is it a quest? Sword Demon obviously wouldn't be seen when he attacked. But soon some players noticed him. He was very prepared and shouted, Come quickly, it's powerful, we can't beat it. Brother, hold on. Several players rushed over. Magic arrows, big swords, and big axes were aimed at the little soldier's head. Fight a few times and retreat when people aren't paying attention. There will be a lot of guards in a while. Be careful not to be exposed. Gu Fei was still giving an experience prompt. Sword Demon understood and pretended to fight for a while. Once he was in stealth, he immediately used it. It was very normal for a thief to go into stealth and ambush them. The others didn't think much of it, so Sword Ghoul quietly left just like that. The players and the guards arrived, so the players shouted, So many spies, and exchanged fire with the guards. How stupid. I don't know when they'll react. Sword Demon said to Gu Fei. It probably won't be too long. I have to hurry, Gu Fei said. What? Sword Demon asked. I'm going to Brother Yu's side, Gu Fei said. He really wanted the world to be in chaos. Sword Demon was filled with emotion. Chapter 680. The camp outside the city was also where the third-party players respawned and resupplied during the city war. Although it was hard to say whether they would survive on the battlefield, the third-party players would not receive the same treatment as Gu Fei and Sword Demon in this territory. Brother Yu stayed quite comfortably after arriving at the camp. He looked left and right, asking for information from the players, and at the same time, asking if Sword of No Oath was dead. At this time, Gu Fei finally arrived. Brother Yu looked up and was puzzled. Before he could ask, he saw Gu Fei suddenly teleport and disappear. Then, in a corner where no one could see, there was a flash of fire. The players in the camp suddenly jumped up as if they were on steroids. They roared and ran around, and in the corner where the fire flashed, someone shouted, Over here! Brother Yu did not understand and also ran over there. The players around him all grabbed their weapons and squeezed into the remote corner. Brother Yu stood on his tiptoes and tried to look into the crowd. It seemed that a person and a guard were fighting. Then he heard the players shout and swarm forward. Brother Yu continued to stand on his tiptoes and watch intermittently. The figure that was fighting with the guard had left at some point. At this time, guards and players continued to rush in from all directions, fighting in a mess. In the end, Brother Yu still did not understand what was going on, but he had a rich experience of being accidentally injured 5 times. He quickly chose to retreat, and he finally recognized the figure. It was undoubtedly Gu Fei. Gu Fei was indeed a genius. He grasped everything very quickly. Teleport, dual flame flash, low profile, a simple trilogy, and yet another resurrection point was set off in a bloody storm. What are you doing? Brother, you quickly sent a message to Gu Fei. Hee. Gu Fei laughed and explained the cause and effect to Brother Yu. Brother Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The guilds in Cloud City were really unlucky to have two players with unexpected systems as their opponents. He didn't know if the guilds in other main cities had suffered the same tragedy. The major guilds that were fighting a bloody battle at the foot of the city all received reports from their recuperating or resurrecting members. There were spies in disguise who had infiltrated the camp. According to research, there were many of them and they were quite strong. This was not an infiltration at all, but a surprise attack on the headquarters. Fuck, the system is so cruel. Could it be that they were going to occupy the camp? How are we supposed to resurrect after we die? The South Gate? A guild leader exclaimed. Can you hold on? Most of the guild leaders asked the same question. It's still alright. We have reinforcements, but so do they. They're still in a stalemate. However, our members rotate very quickly. It won't be a problem for us to wear them out. The players in the camp answered confidently. This was natural. Their battle erupted at the resurrection point. This was the legendary resurrection on the spot. Although they couldn't be at full strength, it was already awesome enough. Dying was no different from not dying. They just needed to rest for a while, and then fight again. The guild leaders at the front let out a long sigh of relief and comforted each other. It's okay, it's okay. Our Triple X is here. He said it's okay. The so-called Triple X here were naturally the core players in the guilds that the guild leaders trusted. After everyone received such an answer, they finally felt that this was just an interlude. However, this interlude went on for a little longer. Since they could directly resurrect on the spot at the resurrection point, and then fight again, the 5 or 10 minutes limit wouldn't stop them from fighting. Therefore, everyone was full of confidence that they would win. They didn't seriously evaluate the losses of the battle. Anyway, if they died, they would just fight. They could wear these NPCs to death as soon as possible. The new warriors at the front also quickly joined this army of wearing people down. They were having fun at the camp, but the players fighting at the front were getting more and more tired. They suddenly realized that their numbers seemed to have decreased. When another wave of attrition was over, and the new troops were preparing to change positions, a group of people stared at each other. Why are there so few people? After this group of people entered the battle, they continued to wear down their numbers. When they looked back, they didn't see new substitutes. What's going on? Where did everyone go? The guild leaders roared. As soon as they finished speaking, cheers of victory came from the camp in the north. They had finally annihilated all the spies who had ambushed the camp. The guild leaders were dumbfounded. Only now did they understand why their people at the front line were in such a tight spot. These guys who had died and resurrected had actually started to kill the spies in the camp. Damn it! What the hell is going on? Hurry up and call for reinforcements at the front line. Unsworn Sword roared in the guild channel. The guild leaders hurriedly called for reinforcements in their own guilds, but none of them were very confident. Because many of them knew in their hearts that when they found out that there was an ambush at the camp, they felt that this was a rather special situation. Therefore, they signaled their own guilds not to come over and help first. They wanted to earn more points at the camp first. If it was only 1 or 2 guilds with such a devious idea, there wouldn't be much of an impact. Therefore, the guild leaders were very brave to give this order. But now that this situation had occurred, these guys all realized that there were so many heroes who thought the same as them. But they didn't dare to make this matter public. These guild leaders all called for their own members to hurry up and join the battle. No matter how seriously the guild leaders who were carrying out the rotation cursed in the channel, no one dared to respond. No, I can't hold on here anymore. Fuck, where are the reinforcements? Roared Unchung Mutsu. The guild alliance had divided the area under the city into 3 main areas. Each area was close to a resurrection camp, and they rotated in the nearest area. The middle and east roads were the main force, while the west road was the cannon fodder army. Originally, The cannon fodder army had no commander, so Unsworn Sword and Against the Current each led the middle and east roads. Then, Against the Current transferred the commander of the cannon fodder army to the west road, and the east road was handed over to Unchung Mutsu. The spy attack on the camp affected all three war zones, but the cannon fodder legion had a large number of people. After going against the flow and arriving at their destination, they carefully sorted out the personnel. There were a lot of rotating camps, and the assembly line was very long. Moreover, their combat strength was not good enough, so Against the Current did not spend much time on the front line to command. The only thing they paid attention to was whether this rotation could be connected. With his personal supervision, the camp was not so casual. Only the injured who could not fight were fighting, and most of the people who should go to the front line still went to the front line. In the end, on Unchung Mutsu's side, the east road, which was slightly weaker than the middle road, collapsed because they could not replenish their members. At this time, they were still playing with the spies in the camp. These idiots did not realize how much of an impact they had on the front line, and were still yelling, "That's enough, hold on." Unchung Mutsu was so angry that he personally died. After reviving at the resurrection point, he started slashing people. "Fuck you all, go to the front line. Those who are recovering, stay here." Unchung Mutsu was really anxious. He did not care if they were from his own guild. He went up and yelled at them. Many people were stunned and obediently left the camp to support the front line. Unchung Mutsu took a look at the spies. Heh, they really looked like them. They were dressed exactly the same as the guards in the camp. As Unchung Mutsu thought about it, he wanted to find a guard in the camp to compare. In the end, he realized that there was no one. Not even one. Unchung Mutsu was stunned. He vaguely realized something and quickly grabbed a player beside him. "Where are the guards in the camp?" This player had just been killed in the battle with the spies, and was revived. He was immediately grabbed by Unchung Mutsu. After being in a daze for a while, he said, "Ah, camp guards, isn't this? Ha, where are the guards? Fuck you bunch of idiots. Stop. All of you fucking stop." Unchung Mutsu was going crazy. He grabbed people and threw them backward. A player was thrown to the ground by him. He was very dissatisfied. He crawled up and scolded. Unchung Mutsu turned around and slashed him in half. Everyone looked at the mental patient in shock. The mental patient glared at them with a pale face. "What are you doing? These are the guards of the camp. Why are you fighting?" "Guards." The players who were still fighting were in an uproar, but their hands did not stop. They slashed and studied carefully. "Are they guards? Are they wearing makeup? Are they spies? Spies my ass." Although Unchung Mutsu was angry, he still kept his cool. He sent a message to the players in the middle camp to verify it. As expected, there was not a single NPC guard in the middle camp that claimed victory. "Stop, all of you, stop." Unchung Mutsu continued to roar. Some players who started to react finally started to help dissuade the players. As the players were from the same country, the system guards would never attack the players first. However, when the players attacked one of them, they would definitely cooperate to fight back. The situation continued to worsen. Now that the players stopped, the system guards no longer had a target to fight back. They acted as if nothing had happened. They sheathed their swords and returned to their positions, leaving behind a bunch of confused players. What happened? Who attacked the NPC first? Unchung Mutsu saw that the situation was under control and calmed down. He quickly organized people to go to the front line to provide support while investigating the cause of the incident. An elder who participated in this event said with certainty, "There was a spy. It was a notification from the system." Yes. Many people agreed. The system would not lie. Unchung Mutsu frowned and said, Then we went around looking for the spy. In the end, we saw a spy dressed as a guard, so we immediately attacked him." Someone said. "How did you know it was a spy? System notification?" Unchung Mutsu asked. "When I arrived, there were already people fighting, so I didn't ask," someone said. Me too. Then who was the first to discover the spy?" Unchung Mutsu asked around, but no one answered. This investigation was also carried out in the middle camp. The result was the same. The first person who discovered the spy couldn't say anything, but many people insisted that when they arrived at the scene, they definitely saw a person who discovered the spy first and fought with him. Misfortune never comes alone. At this time, there was the second bad news. Due to the lack of support in the east, even though the middle camp had provided appropriate support, they still couldn't win against the system. Then, the system assassin army suddenly appeared on the battlefield in the east, causing the east camp to collapse instantly. The system people they were fighting then charged towards the middle camp. The middle camp naturally couldn't hold on anymore and retreated. The cannon fodder army in the west was of course meaningless and retreated. The second siege of the city ended in failure because of such a sneak attack. What was worse was that they still couldn't figure out the cause of this incident. Who the fuck was it? After Unsworn Sword came back and understood the situation, he was also furious. All the guild masters were shouting, including those who had been sneakily hinting to their people to earn points in the camp. So it was all for nothing. The people they killed for half a day were their own guards. How could there be points? These guild masters seriously suspected that their own points were now in the negatives. The guild masters were determined to get to the bottom of this incident, but after interrogating a large number of participants, the conclusion was basically the same. The system had given out a notification that a spy had entered the camp. The players searched and found someone fighting with the spy, so they went up to help, causing the situation to become chaotic. However, the first person who was discovered by the spy could not be found. At this time, someone could still laugh, and it was very piercing in the crowd. The guild masters all shouted angrily, "Who is it?" Looking in the direction of the voice, they saw the Han family young master. Ahem. Unsworn Sword coughed, and did not say anything. Unchung Mutsu and Black Index Finger did not have a good impression of the Han family young master. Seeing that he was still angry, he even pointed the finger at Countercurrent. Guildmaster Countercurrent, control your people. Countercurrent was naturally embarrassed and said helplessly, "What are you laughing at? What did those two guys look like?" Han family young master suddenly asked one of the participants, and without waiting for an answer, he immediately changed his question. "Right, you only participated in one, so tell me what you saw." "I didn't see their faces clearly. Their clothes seemed to be black robes." "Ah!" Many people screamed. Black robes were actually very common equipment, but in Cloud Peak City, black robes were a kind of symbol. Most mages didn't dare to wear them, as it was very likely that they would be ambushed and killed without even knowing what had happened. Imitating one's idol was fine in other cities, but in Cloud City, your idol had offended too many people. "This is Qianli drunk?" Countercurrent frowned. "I think I saw a black robe too," someone said. Because Gu Fei came and left quickly, and everyone's main focus was on the spies and guards, many of those who had seen him face to face felt that their impression of him was a blur when they thought about it. The one I saw seems to be. Even those who saw Sword Demon felt that it was a black robe, but it was actually the black cloak of an assassin. That's impossible. The time when you found the spy was almost the same as here, so it must be two people. So here and Mid are both Qianli drunk, and on your side, it should be Sword Demon. The spy that the system indicated was actually those two, but everyone's thoughts were prejudiced, and they all treated the players as one of their own, which led to such a big mess, Han family young master said. This seems like it. Many people felt that this analysis was reasonable enough. These two guys are too vicious. Many people were indignant. About this, Guild Master Unsworn, can you give us an explanation? At this time, someone suddenly stood up and said. Unsworn Sword looked at this person and said angrily, "White plus black, what the fuck do you mean?" "What do I mean? While everyone is here, I want to ask you what the fuck do you mean? Everyone listen up. It's this bastard Unsworn Sword who colluded with Qianli Drunk and Sword Demon to cause trouble for our city war. He even sent his lackey, Time Reflected, to lure these two people over to kill me once." "Fuck," White plus Black said. "Fuck you." Unsworn Sword was furious, and was about to cut White plus Black in half. However, even though his guild was strong, his individual strength was not at the level of Gu Fei's heaven-defying level of being able to insta-kill someone with a wave of his hand. White and black were also guild leaders, so they weren't that weak. They wouldn't be cut down in a single exchange. Raising his sword, he retaliated, unwilling to be outdone. The two of them clashed for a few rounds, and the group of guild leaders silently watched the commotion. Some were even secretly laughing. Time Reflected was very anxious, and jumped out and shouted, "It's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding." As he said that, he wanted to pull the two apart, but White plus Black also had a brother. He jumped out and shouted, "What, are you trying to take sides? What are you talking about? This is a misunderstanding. Stop and listen to my explanation," Time Reflected said. "Explanation? What's there to explain?" White plus Black said angrily. "Guild leader White plus Black, shouldn't you first tell us when you were killed?" Time Reflected asked. "I was." White plus Black said 2 words and suddenly stopped. This was hard to say. How to say it? Say that I was killed on the way to snatch the Singing with Wine quest? Upstream against the flow was happily watching from the side. Time Reflected was really cunning. Thinking of this, White plus Black didn't care anymore. He just laughed coldly and said, "What did you do? Humph, you received a secret order from guild leader Unsworn to mess up the Singing with Wine quest. Fuck you scum, you're slandering me again." Unsworn Sword was angry again, but this time he felt a little guilty. However, he had to pretend to be in the right. Competing with Singing with Wine was not shameful, but using this kind of shady business, if others believed it, how would they look at him? Why not? Although you didn't say it clearly, do you think I don't understand your hint when you're talking in my ear? Humph, do you think I'm that kind of person? You want me to do bad things? I won't. I'm going to bring people to help guild leader against the current. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless. Seeing that I wasn't willing, you colluded with outsiders to assassinate me. Fuck 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 fuck. White plus Black was not called that in vain. He was very good at distorting black and white. His words were filled with truth and falsehood, but it was also reasonable. The most despicable people were invincible. Time Reflected had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, but he was at his wit's end when it came to this kind of shameless person. His counterattack was really cool, smashing Unsworn Sword and raining the 4 Seas black and blue. Everyone knew that there was definitely competition between raining the 4 Seas and Singing with Wine. If they really knew that Singing with Wine had a quest to steal points, it was very likely that they would incite people to cause trouble. As for the fact that the White plus the Black didn't listen to the bluff and instead helped to sing and drink to the wine, this was a story that depended on the benevolent and the wise. In short, the days of Unsworn Sword and raining the 4 Seas suddenly became very difficult. Chapter 681. Unsworn Sword looked around. The people here were all guild leaders, and they were all looking at him with complicated expressions. Did Unsworn Sword really care about so many gazes? Not necessarily. In such a tense moment, he only wanted to find one person's gaze. He did not find it, because the person was already standing beside him. Before Unsworn Sword could say anything, the person suddenly rushed out. The scarlet cloak slid off his shoulders and floated in the air. Unsworn Sword hurriedly reached out to catch it. On the other side, White and Black had already taken the full brunt of the charge. Bai Jiahe had just fought Unsworn Sword before, so he had been on guard against Unsworn Sword's movements. He did not expect this person to suddenly attack him. With a charge, Unsworn Sword stunned Bai Jiahe, rendering him unable to move. He glared at Unsworn Sword and said, "Fuck, what does this have to do with you?" The newcomer didn't answer. He stretched out 2 fingers of his right hand and pinched a ring on his left finger. With a slight twist, his entire body glowed with a red light. Players familiar with warriors knew that this was a special characteristic of berserk warriors. When rage accumulated to a certain level, they would enter a berserk state. In this state, the damage they dealt would increase by 20%, and the damage they received would also increase by 20%. Generally speaking, this kind of situation rarely occurred in PvP, because warrior skills all consumed rage. In a one-on-one battle, it was almost always possible to run out of rage, but not so much that it accumulated to such an extent. Moreover, this state couldn't be maintained. When a player didn't attack or receive damage for a certain amount of time, their rage would naturally decrease. So, only someone like Gu Xiaoshang could enter such a state right at the start of a PvP fight, possessing equipment or skills that could rapidly increase rage. In this berserk state, Gu Xiaoshang didn't even bother attacking White and Black. He immediately used Whirlwind Slash. White and Black had already lost some HP in the fight with Unsworn Sword, and Gu Xiaoshang had also activated his berserk state. White and Black's brothers wanted to help, but their bodies weren't as sturdy as White and Black. Just how much rage accumulated in a berserk state? With the addition of the rage buff when the attack dealt damage, many of the players present witnessed the longest whirlwind slash in history. Just like that, the White and Black Guild Master was shredded into white light by this whirlwind. However, this wasn't the end of it. This was the campsite, so they revived nearby. White and Black immediately revived at another location that glowed with white light. It just so happened that they were right next to the guild leaders gathering. Everyone looked at him and automatically made way for him. They saw Bai Jiahe rushing in with his sword in hand, a furious expression on his face. He kept cursing along the way. When he rushed into the crowd, he saw Gu Xiaoshang, who had dealt with him, still standing there majestically. Bai Jiahe continued to spew out a bunch of vulgarities, but Gu Xiaoshang did not get angry. He only said 3 words, shameless. Little Shang. Unsworn Sword was moved beyond words. In that irrefutable situation, Unsworn Sword was already disheartened. His last hope was that the girl he had always liked would not feel disgusted with him because of this. In the end, Gu Xiaoshang actually helped him kill Bai Jiahe. Unsworn Sword was overjoyed. In the end, Gu Xiaoshang turned around and glanced at him. He also said, "You're useless." Ah. Unsworn Sword was startled. "You think I don't know you? When you see someone with a quest, you get jealous. You're too embarrassed to do it yourself, so you instigate others to do it. Useless. If you want it, go snatch it yourself." Gu Xiaoshang scolded Unsworn Sword, causing the people around him to sweat profusely. Everyone in Cloud City knew that if a guild was strong, they would be able to dominate the world. If a guild leader was strong, they would be able to go against the current. However, when the word valiant was mentioned, anyone with a bit of knowledge would think of Gu Xiaoshang. Just look at the current situation. The logic of a bandit was too valiant. Unsworn Sword didn't know what to do. How was he supposed to express himself? "I'll listen to you from now on and become a bandit?" That's not right. Reflection Time was quick-witted and quickly came over to smooth things over. What Little Shang means is that we should take responsibility for our actions. Regardless of whether he understood it correctly or not, it sounded much better when he said it like that. In the end, Gu Xiaoshang did not give him any face and rolled his eyes at him. "What kind of stupid idea is this? It's definitely your idea again. When guilds compete, everyone should fight openly. What's the point of using these kinds of schemes?" Reflection Time did not want to argue with Gu Xiaoshang. Even though he felt that Gu Xiaoshang's thinking was too naive, he kept saying yes. White and Black was not in the mood to watch the 3 of them argue. He roared and rushed forward, also using a whirlwind slash, greedily trying to kill the 3 of them. Unsworn Sword acted like a real man. He did not dodge and also used a whirlwind slash. He wanted to compete with White and Black in terms of skill strength to determine the winner. However, the damage between the 2 was not like heaven and earth. The 2 whirlwind slashes collided, but neither was completely destroyed. Blood splattered everywhere, and the health of both players dropped. As the fight continued, White and Black, who was slightly weaker, finally lost and had their skills interrupted by Unsworn Sword's whirlwind slash. Unsworn Sword wasn't going to give in. He suddenly cancelled his whirlwind slash and charged forward, using his unique skill, Second Charge. With 2 thrusts, he knocked White and Black to who knew where. "Fuck me." White and Black was sent flying away, but their curses could still be heard. Who could endure being bullied continuously? Since they would not lose a level even if they died, they would go all out. White and Black roared and came back again. This time, he was not alone. Along the way, he sent out messages to gather people. He had actually mobilized the entire guild and brought people over to kill. "Are you done yet?" Oathless Sword noticed that no one was paying attention to the incident that they had just stirred up. This was a good opportunity to divert their attention. He immediately sent out a message, and the members of Reigning the Four immediately swarmed over from all directions. Brothers, our guild may be small, but we will not be bullied. White and Black rallied the guild members and fought with Reigning the Four Seas. Fight! Beat them up! Teach them a lesson! Unsworn Sword also roared. In the blink of an eye, the camp of Rebirth had become a battlefield. None of the guild leaders were willing to get involved in this mess, and they all retreated to the side. With reigning strength, Unsworn Sword did not even need to personally participate in this kind of battle. Watching White and Black jump left and right in the midst of the chaotic battle, he casually stood to the side and gave out commands. This was also a display of his stance. However, someone wasn't willing to let him go. Going against the flow and slowly approaching the Sword of No Oath, using a voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. Guildmaster No Oath, you still haven't given me an explanation for what happened just now. Reflected Time sighed. Explanation? What explanation was needed when everyone was well aware of the situation? Going against the flow was simply because he saw that everyone's attention had been diverted by the PvP. He wanted to drag the topic back to its original point. He wanted to use this matter to completely destroy the image of Unsworn Sword and Reigning the Four Seas. It was too naive to think that the game was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. This was also a society of people. A single scumbag was enough to destroy a guild, and it had nothing to do with the strength of the guild. Gu Xiaoshang had said that it was an open competition. This was a good idea, but it was a pity that people's thoughts weren't so simple. For example, this was a huge public relations crisis. If they didn't handle it well, Unhindered might be destroyed without a single drop of blood being shed. What to do? What to do? Reflected Time was very anxious, and so was Unsworn Sword. Seeing the flickering eyes of the players around them, the two became even more anxious. Of the 3 core members of Reigning the Four Seas, Fengxing was leading his people to fight against Black and White Alliance, but for the guild, that was a small matter. It's already obvious. What else is there to explain? Gu Xiaoshang actually interrupted at this moment. Going against the flow had a pained look on his face. Guild leader Unsworn. Everyone agreed to work together to win this city war. If we are lucky enough to receive this mission, it will be beneficial to our victory in the city war. You just don't want to see us win points, so you sabotage the entire mission. You. The phrase "go against the current" was probably written in a draft just now. At this moment, it was said clearly in a cadence. The last 3 words you sounded like he was so angry that he couldn't speak. Yeah, with such an attitude, what's the point of working together? Finally, someone spoke up. Reigning the Four Seas, you guys are too overbearing. Can't you just watch someone else complete a quest? These people felt sad for the loss of their own kind. What if they also received a top-tier quest? With Reigning's hegemony, wouldn't the quest also be sabotaged? We don't want to work with people like you. Let's go. Let's go to another city gate. Why? We've worked so hard here for so long. If someone has to leave, it should be them. Yeah, Reigning, go on your own. Don't force us. As the voices grew louder, everyone's courage grew. They all said that they wanted Reigning to leave immediately. However, their words were still polite, and there was no foul language. Unsworn Sword and Reflection of Years looked at each other. They knew that this time, they really had no chance. As the number 1 guild in Cloud City, Reigning the Four Seas did not have a good impression of them. This city war had first gathered all the guilds together, and now the events that had transpired had caused all the guilds to develop a collective rejection of Unhindered's actions. In fact, how many of them really did not want to work with Reigning the Four Seas? And how many of them also saw through this situation and wanted to take advantage of it to destroy Reigning the Four Seas? The human heart was hard to predict, and no one knew. Unsworn Sword and Reflection of Years had no choice but to silently leave the team formed by the elite guild leaders of Cloud City. Before leaving, Unsworn Sword saw going against the flow with a satisfied smile on his face. I'm leaving too, Gu Xiaoshang suddenly said. Xiaoshang. Unsworn Sword was moved again. If this matter could really bring him and Gu Xiaoshang together, Unsworn Sword felt that it would be a blessing in disguise. It's not because of you. Gu Xiaoshang glared at Unsworn Sword. She then looked at the guild leaders who were looking at her and said, Unsworn and the others weren't honest enough in this matter. However, guild leader Countercurrent, I know what you're thinking by refusing to let this matter go. I'm not as cunning as you, but I'm not stupid either. Unsworn and the others didn't act properly, and you're not that strong either. I don't have any confidence in working with you guys. I think we should just forget about this alliance. Let's just fight our own battles and leave it to fate. After Gu Xiaoshang said this, she turned around and left. Before she left, she did not even look at Unsworn Sword. Everyone was stunned, thinking about Gu Xiaoshang's words. Some of the guild leaders began to whisper to each other, and not long after, someone said, We're leaving too. We're leaving. Us too. The guilds left one after another. Some of the smaller guilds did not even have the qualifications to participate in this kind of guild leader gathering, so they could only pitifully wait on the side for news. At this time, after hearing a bunch of things that happened here, they all made their own plans. Some quietly left, some continued to watch from the side, and some went up to take a closer look. The people who left at the beginning still said something, but in the end, they just lowered their heads and silently left. The guild alliance in Cloud City had completely collapsed. Originally, there were more than 800 guilds, but in the end, there were less than 50 who stayed. This was an outcome that Unsworn Sword did not expect, and it was also something that going against the flow did not want to see. The two of them looked at each other, then at the gazes of those who left. Well, both of them were looked down upon. Everyone finally understood that working together was all a sham. Gathering everyone together was just a ploy by the big guilds to fight openly and covertly. If there was something good, they would be the first to pounce on it. If they followed them, everyone would only be able to eat the soup. Even if they were lucky enough to pick up a piece of meat, there would immediately be people who would come to snatch it. The crowd gradually dispersed, but the battle between reigning the Four Seas and Black-White Alliance continued. But at this time, not a single person was concerned about this chaotic battle. Everyone looked on coldly with mocking expressions, as if they were watching a group of rabid dogs fighting for food. Beat them up. At this time, Unsworn Sword had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He originally thought that Gu Xiaoshang was biased towards him. Even if the guild fell, he would still feel a trace of sweetness in his heart. But now he finally knew that Gu Xiaoshang was simply following her wishes. Compared to the scheming of these men, the girl was pure and straightforward with her own wishful thinking. But just as she said, simple, not stupid. It was not only these people who witnessed all of this. Brother Yu, who was mixed in the crowd, also watched from beginning to end. He almost knew the whole story, and he was even more amazed. What did Gu Fei do? Wasn't it just teleportation, dual flame flash, and a low-profile escape? But in the end, it actually caused these guilds to have a deep level of discord, and a good alliance fell apart on its own. Amazing, this is really amazing. I don't know if Qianli planned this, or if it was just an accident. This is a big event, I have to record it. As Brother Yu thought about it, he started writing in his notebook again. Gu Fei and Sword Demon did not dare to openly mix in the crowd like Brother Yu. The two of them quietly watched everything from afar, while listening to Brother Yu's live broadcast. When the alliance fell apart, the two of them looked at each other in disbelief. That's amazing. Gu Fei said, if the two of us had a score system, how many points would it give us? With the system's intelligence, it probably can't measure this value. Sword Demon said. Brother Yu, where is Unsworn Sword right now? Gu Fei asked. You're still going at it. Forget it. Brother Yu was there in person, and after witnessing the series of encounters that Sword Without Oath had gone through, he felt pity for him. He did not expect that Gu Fei and the others would still want to cause harm to this poor man. It's a quest. Gu Fei replied easily. I can see him from here. He's commanding the guild to vent his anger on Black-White Life and Death Alliance. Brother Yu said. I really want to join the battle. Gu Fei rubbed his hands. Let's wait. Let them play first. Brother Yu said. Okay. Gu Fei was also helpless. With all the people from Unhindered here, it would be a bit difficult to destroy Unsworn Sword. Gu Fei didn't think of himself as a match for 1,000 people. Of course, he felt that it was because he didn't have enough mana, and not because he wasn't strong enough. After Brother Yu sent the message, he sat under the tree and continued to write. A person silently floated to his side, tilted his head to look at what he was writing, and said with disdain, "You're really bored, what's there to write about?" Brother Yu suddenly smelled a familiar smell of alcohol, tilted his head to look, and saw Han family young master leaning against a tree looking down at him, the bottle of alcohol in his hand swaying back and forth, as if it could fall on his head at any moment. Brother Yu subconsciously dodged. "It's a big event, I'll write it down." "Where are those two?" Han family young master asked. "I don't know where they are," Brother Yu said. "Spread my words. I will definitely find the two of them and wipe them out," the Han family young master said. "No way. We're all on the same side. Why are you so serious?" Brother Yu said. "Serious? I'm just bored. Do you think they'll be scared to the point of peeing their pants if they hear this?" Han family young master said. Brother Yu laughed dryly. "Probably not." Han family young master nodded his head and said, "If it's you, there's an 80% chance you will." Brother Yu's face was full of tears. "Did I offend you?" After Brother Yu passed on Han family young master's words to the two, Gu Fei was surprised. "What's wrong? He has nothing to do." I think it's the two of you who messed up their situation, but he can't do anything about it, hurting his pride." Brother Yu still dared to say this behind Han family young master's back. "Will that be the case?" Gu Fei asked Sword Demon, hoping that Sword Demon would make a judgment based on his understanding of Han family young master. "Very much so," Sword Demon said with certainty. "Looks like he's prepared to deal with us seriously. He has the heart, but he doesn't have the strength. Of course we can't fight him directly, but if it's a commander, there probably won't be anyone who listens to him, right?" Gu Fei said. "That's true." Sword Demon nodded his head. "I don't know what he's prepared to do." At the same time, a system notification suddenly appeared in the guild channel. Han family young master has left the guild. At the guild encampment of colorful clouds, Han family young master smiled and appeared with his bottle of wine. "Is your guild recruiting?" Chapter 682. When Against the Current received this system message, he was astonished. Even though he did not have much of a relationship with the Han family young master, Against the Current had always been polite to this fellow. This was because he knew that this person was an expert, and he also knew how powerful the child elite group that he led was. Naturally, there were no hard and fast conditions for players to enter the guild. The guild leader could set the standards for recruitment and expulsion, and this had nothing to do with the system. No one could change the fact that the players did not want to join the guild or wanted to leave. However, the players in the guild had a contribution level, and the level of contribution determined the generous rewards that the players would receive in the guild quests. The rewards of the guild quests all had a base amount, and the higher the guild contribution level, the more generous the rewards would be based on the base amount. It could be said that a player with guild contribution level would have an advantage in terms of earning EXP and RMB compared to a wild player. Once the contribution level left the guild, it would be reset to 0. Therefore, most people would have to consider this point before leaving the guild. However, this problem was useless when it came to the Han family young master. This fellow had never participated in any guild quests, and his contribution level was pitifully low. Naturally, he would leave if he wanted to. However, Against the Current felt that even if he wanted to leave, he should at least inform him, right? Or was there some kind of operational error? Against the Current thought and sent a message to the Han family young master. He was quite concerned. "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing much. I'm just playing in a random guild," replied the Han family young master. Against the Current did not know what to say to the Han family young master. Talk about friendship? There was no friendship. Talk about feelings? Where did this person get feelings for the guild? Talk about contribution? There was no such thing. Against the Current could see that this was a master. Squatting here was already giving you face, so don't expect too much from me. On the side of Among Rosy Clouds, the Han family young master came out to ask questions with a smile on his face. A bunch of people turned around and recognized him. Those who didn't recognize him would be able to guess who he was just by looking at him. The black robe and the purple sword were definitely not unique. However, the Han family young master's face was really unique. It's the Han family young master, right? Yes, the leader of the child elite group. An expert who's with Qianli's group. A bunch of players whispered to each other, but no one answered the Han family young master's question. I'm asking you guys. Is the guild recruiting? The Han family young master asked again. Only then did everyone snap out of their daze. For such a big shot to ask to join the guild, anyone with a brain would know that this wasn't a small matter. Someone immediately stood up and greeted him. Wait a moment, we'll inform the guild leader. The Han family young master was obviously someone worthy of the guild leader's personal greeting. After Gu Xiaoshang received the news, he felt that it was strange, but he still rushed over. When he arrived, the Han family young master was already sitting with a bunch of people and bragging. Big sis. Seeing Gu Xiaoshang, these people immediately stood up and made way. Those who understood could tell that this modesty was true respect, which was rare in the game. It's really you. This was the first thing Gu Xiaoshang said when he saw the Han family young master. I'm the real deal. The Han family young master replied. You want to join our guild? Gu Xiaoshang asked. Yeah. Why? The atmosphere is good. The Han family young master said. This reason is too formal. Give me a special reason. Gu Xiaoshang said. The guild leader is beautiful. Look at what you're saying. Gu Xiaoshang was actually a bit embarrassed, making everyone feel uncomfortable. Then they heard her say, same to you. The Han family young master wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, he laughed. There's no need to compare yourself to me. You have to compare yourself to the other guild leaders. Gu Xiaoshang laughed. When the others heard this strange conversation, they all wanted to crawl away. However, Gu Xiaoshang changed the topic. Our guild doesn't have any spots. You can't even squeeze a single spot in a guild with over 1,000 people? The Han family young master asked. Gu Xiaoshang turned around and looked at the surrounding guild members. She looked at them attentively. No, not a single one. Oh, it's fine if there's no spot. Actually, it's not necessary to join the guild. The Han family young master said. What do you mean? Do you have any plans for the upcoming city war? The Han family young master asked. Not yet. Gu Xiaoshang said. I'll give you one. Go ahead. Drunk Qianli and Sword Demon. The Han family young master said. What is it? These two fellows have become special existences in this city war. As players, they have become the defenders of the city. These two fellows are the real cause of the chaos on our side. If we deal with them, we might be able to get a decent amount of points. The Han family young master said. Aren't they your friends? Gu Xiaoshang said. Games are usually played with friends. However, when it comes to confrontational games, even if they are friends, you would still want to win. You wouldn't purposely lose to them because of your friends, right? The Han family young master said. Haha. Well said. Not bad. They are friends in a game. Gu Xiaoshang nodded his head. But why did you find us? Can't you deal with them even if you're drinking songs? Oh, I'm not that familiar with drinking songs. The Han family young master said. We're not that familiar with you either. With just a word from you, we're close. The Han family young master said. You've seen it quite clearly. That's why I said your guild has a good atmosphere. This isn't an empty formula. Your guild does indeed have an atmosphere that isn't as good as the other guilds. Unity, with the guild leader at the center. The Han family young master said. That's why you came to find us. You hope that we can provide manpower, and you can come up with a plan to deal with those two, right? Gu Xiaoshang said. Yes. The Han family young master nodded his head. What does everyone think? Gu Xiaoshang turned her head and casually asked the people around her. This was different from normal guilds. Normally, the guild leader would grab his most trusted aides and go to the side for a meeting. Although Gu Xiaoshang's actions were a bit random and unscientific, The people she asked all felt warmth in their hearts. Interesting. Someone said. Since we have nothing to do right now, why don't we go find those two and see just how strong they are? Right, I've always wanted to spar with Qianli, but I haven't had the chance. Someone was eager to try. Gu Xiaoshang glanced at him and said, I've seen drunk Qianli's skills, you're far from it. Then we can still try. That person said. That's simple. When we meet, we'll just tell him that we want to fight one-on-one, and he'll definitely agree. The Han family young master said. I just can't meet him. That person said. That's why you have to support my plan. The Han family young master said. Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed. Gu Xiaoshang also said. You can't just ask for votes like this. Then please. Gu Xiaoshang looked around and shouted. Does anyone want to deal with drunk Qianli and sword demon? Come over. Gu Xiaoshang shouted to dub the message in the guild. Now that all the players had received this news, many people ran over. Big sister, what's wrong? Why do we suddenly want to deal with those two? Let's play. Gu Xiaoshang said. What about the city war? We don't know how to fight the city war, but dealing with those two is a part of it anyways. Gu Xiaoshang said. Then I'll go. I'll go too. I'll go. I'll go. They were all very eager to sign up. Gu Xiaoshang looked at one and picked one. A level 20 brat also shouted out, but Gu Xiaoshang slapped him to the side. Scram, don't cause trouble. There were so many players in the clouds, but Gu Xiaoshang actually knew all of them. It seemed like he even knew basic information such as levels and classes. This was really rare for a guild leader. After a while, Gu Xiaoshang picked over 100 people. It could be seen that they were all elites of the guild and their classes matched. Gu Xiaoshang nodded his head in satisfaction and looked towards the Han family young master. How is it? Actually, we don't need that many. The Han family young master said. It's okay, they're all bored to death. Gu Xiaoshang said. Everyone behind him booed. Alright then, if you're bored, then come with me. The Han family young master waved his hand. Everyone was depressed. Not a single person moved. If they moved, then wouldn't they be bored to death? I'll go too, Gu Xiaoshang said. Of course you're welcome. The Han family young master said. But you'll still be in charge of commanding. I want to see what kind of skill it is to command 6 people to defeat 100. Gu Xiaoshang said. The child elite group winning the mercenary competition was a miracle in and of itself. Yo, then I'm afraid you won't be able to see it. Right now there are only 2 opponents. It'll be as easy as lifting a finger. The Han family young master said. Let's talk about your plan first. Gu Xiaoshang said. Let's walk and talk. Okay. Gu Xiaoshang nodded and waved his hand. Let's go. This time there wasn't any annoying greeting. Everyone happily started moving. These 2 people come and go like ghosts. How are you going to find them? Gu Xiaoshang asked. I know their next target. The Han family young master said. Oh. Sword without oath. The Han family young master said. Maybe Sword without oath would think that his name was special to Gu Xiaoshang, but in reality, when Gu Xiaoshang heard this name, he didn't have any reaction at all. He asked, how did you know? I asked him. Asked him. That's right, because we're friends. The Han family young master said. At this moment, Brother Yu was crying as he begged Gu Fei and the sword demon for forgiveness. You guys have to understand. Think about it, he guessed that I knew your goal. If I didn't say it, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Don't forget, he's young master. Alright, no one is blaming you. Gu Fei said. He knows that we're going to deal with sword without oath, so the easiest way is to wait for him. The sword demon said. Then we can't fall into his ambush. We have to do something unexpected. Gu Fei thought. Chapter 683. Brother Yu, where are you? Go scout out the sword of no oath. Gu Fei sent a message to Brother Yu. I say, don't make me do the double agent's job, okay? I can't take on such a technical job. You already know that Gongzi is going to wait for me there. Do you think he'll let me go? Brother Yu hurriedly replied. It's okay, I won't drop a level if I die. Gu Fei said. Brother Yu cried. The threat of death was obviously stronger on Gu Fei's side. The Han family young master's side was an inhumane mental attack and endless revenge. Did this guy even understand the situation? On the other side, Gu Fei said to Sword Demon, "See, this is our advantage. We let Brother Yu go, no matter if it's life or death, we'll be able to dig up some information. But Brother Yu won't be able to grasp our situation." Sword Demon sweated. Brother Yu agreed? Why wouldn't I agree? It's nothing. As Gu Fei said this, Brother Yu replied, "I won't do it." Why not? Gu Fei hurriedly asked. The other party's message has not been received. Brother Yu said. Which other party? Gongzi? Gu Fei asked. The other party's message has not been received. It wasn't Brother Yu who said it, but the system. Gu Fei cried. Brother Yu's attitude was very firm this time. He directly turned off the message to show that he wasn't going to participate in this matter. Brother Yu was smart. He couldn't afford to offend either side. Wasn't being stuck in the middle like a knife cutting his leg? If he wasn't careful, he would be cut in half. However, Brother Yu couldn't bear to miss out on such a big show. He still inquired about the location of Unhindered 4Cs, hoping to secretly watch a live broadcast. Well, we'll have to find out where they are ourselves. Gu Fei sighed. Brother Yu, what happened? I've turned off the message. It's hard for him to be so strong-willed. Sword Demon exclaimed. I didn't notice which way Raining the 4Cs went. Gu Fei and the Sword Demon could still see groups of people in front of them, but there were hundreds of thousands of people here. How could they find more than 1,000 people? Difficult. How about this? Let them guard it first, and we'll go to the Cloud Suburb Lake to take a look and study my investigation mission. Gu Fei said. Let's go. Sword Demon had no objections. The two of them temporarily put aside the assassination mission and went to the Cloud Suburb Lake. Meanwhile, the Han family young master and Gu Xiaoshang brought more than 100 elites from between rosy clouds and found Raining the 4Cs base. Everyone in Raining the 4Cs knew the guild leader's feelings for Gu Xiaoshang. Seeing that she was leading the way, no one asked any questions. They all rushed to the guild leader to report the good news. Guild leader Gu is here. Xiaoshang is here? Unsworn Sword was as listless as if he had been hit by frost. When he heard the news, it was as if he had taken 200 stimulants. He stood up and asked, Where? After someone reported the location, Unsworn Sword hurriedly tidied up his appearance and couldn't help but try to figure out Gu Xiaoshang's intentions. She left quite resolutely before, so why did she come back on her own? Xiaoshang still has feelings for me. Before it was because she was the guild leader, so it wasn't convenient for her to bring more than 1,000 people to comfort me. Now that the guild has settled down, she immediately came to find me. I have to understand her. Just as he was thinking, he saw Gu Xiaoshang approaching with a group of people. Unsworn Sword hurriedly quickened his steps. He was just about to say a few words of gratitude when he suddenly saw that the person walking next to Gu Xiaoshang was actually the Han family young master. This combination was too strange. Unsworn Sword never knew that Gu Xiaoshang had any dealings with this guy. Could it be? The word love rival involuntarily appeared in Unsworn Sword's mind. It was true that people who were deeply in the river of love would have their IQ lowered. Sword of Unsworn did not even consider whether this was logical or not. He had already suspected it without hesitation, and immediately compared himself with his love rival. Appearance? He looked like a woman. Habit? A drunkard. Personality? Terrible as hell. Identity? A 6-man squad leader. Skill? He was just a cleric. No matter how skilled he was, cutting him down was like child's play. After carefully comparing himself, Unsworn Sword felt that he should have a complete victory. But for some reason, there was a huge pressure on his chest, making him feel that his chances of winning weren't high. How could this be? I'm better than him in all aspects. I forgot to consider how despicable he is. Unsworn Sword's thoughts were running wild, and he forgot to speak. The two of them had already arrived in front of him. Guild leader Unsworn. Han family young master greeted. I have to maintain my composure and maintain my composure. Unsworn Sword reminded himself, then very warmly smiled and said, The Han family brothers. I've brought you a piece of bad news and a piece of good news. Which one do you want to hear first? Han family young master said. Unsworn Sword's face turned a lot greener. He continued to make wild guesses in his mind while answering in the spirit of first bitterness and then sweetness. The bad one first. Qianli drunk and sword demon's next assassination target is you. Han family young master said. Ah. Why? They received a mission. Then why me? Because you're awesome. You're the most awesome guild leader in our Cloud City. Han family young master said. This? Why did they come knowing this? Unsworn Sword was confused. This reason didn't seem logical. In the end, Han family young master replied. Because when Qianli drunk, that guy's favorite hobby is to chop the awesome into idiots. Unsworn Sword's face immediately darkened. He sneaked a glance at Gu Xiaoshang's expression and reminded himself 180 times to maintain his composure. Then he smiled and said, There's another piece of good news? That's right. The good news is that I've decided to personally go and turn him into an idiot. Han family young master said. Oh, this piece of good news really surprised Unsworn Sword. You guys. We're friends, so I know they're coming to deal with you. We're opponents from different factions, so I have to take care of them. Alright, I don't think you have any more questions. Try to take care of yourself. If you die, you can imagine me taking revenge for you for fun. The Han family young master said. Unsworn Sword now had a bit of the aura of a guild leader. He laughed. If I'm so easily killed, then how can I still stand here and command 1,000 brothers to attack the city? Qianli drunk. Han family young master suddenly shouted. Ah. Unsworn Sword was shocked. He immediately used charge and flashed 3 meters away, followed by a whirlwind slash behind him. In the end, he saw a bunch of people staring at him in shock. Guild leader Unsworn is very vigilant. This makes me feel a lot more at ease. Keep it up. You must keep it up. Han family young master said. Unsworn Sword's face turned red, especially with Gu Xiaoshang in front of him. He really wanted to find a hole to hide in. However, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only watch as the young master of the Han family taunted him again before turning around and leaving. Gu Xiaoshang and the rest of the gang followed after him. Only then did Unsworn Sword realize that he hadn't spoken a single word to Gu Xiaoshang since the beginning. As for why the Han family young master was with them, he was also very concerned. Xiaoshang. Unsworn Sword couldn't take it anymore. He chased after Gu Xiaoshang and stopped him. Gu Xiaoshang turned around. What's the matter? That. Unsworn Sword mumbled as he scuttled to Gu Xiaoshang's side. He lowered his voice and said, Why is this person with you guys? He left the guild and came to help us. Gu Xiaoshang replied. He didn't try to hide his voice at all. Everyone could hear him, and naturally guessed what Unsworn Sword was asking. Unsworn Sword looked at Han family young master awkwardly, only to see Han family young master raise his bottle and say, Do your best. Do what? Unsworn Sword was at a loss. When he turned around, he suddenly realized that Han family young master was telling him to do his best for Gu Xiaoshang, not a love rival. Unsworn Sword was overjoyed. He didn't know why he would be so happy after finding out that he wasn't a match for an opponent that he had calculated to lose to. Is there anything else? Gu Xiaoshang asked. Nothing. Unsworn Sword retreated, letting Gu Xiaoshang leave. There wasn't a trace of unhappiness on his face. Actually, Gu Xiaoshang had always treated him like a normal friend. Many of the scenarios were made up by him, and he felt that the two of them were closer than normal friends. However, Unsworn Sword was still worried that a person like Han family young master would be by Gu Xiaoshang's side. His concern for Gu Xiaoshang was sincere, so he sent her a message. This Han family young master is very cunning. You have to be more careful. Gu Xiaoshang replied simply. She wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for her. After all, Unsworn Sword was still sincere towards her. Thinking up to this point, she turned around and waved to Unsworn Sword. Let's go. Be careful. When Unsworn Sword looked back, he was so happy that flowers bloomed in his eyes. He watched as the team gradually left their encampment. Guildmaster, I can't see anymore. Guildmaster, saliva. Guildmaster, is your soul still here? Countless people laughed and joked about Sword of No Oath. Scram. Unsworn Sword laughed and scolded. He was in a good mood, so he didn't pursue the matter. The reflected years, the schemer floated over and said, could this be some kind of conspiracy to go against the current? If there's a conspiracy, I think it's more likely to be this boss. Going against the current, I don't think we can order him around. Unsworn Sword said. That's true. The reflected years nodded. Do you think his information is trustworthy? Trustworthy. Unsworn Sword nodded. Otherwise, what good would such fake information do him? Moreover, Xiaoshang is with him. Xiaoshang wouldn't lie to me. Unsworn Sword said happily. His wishful thinking was acting up again. Couldn't he lie to Gu Xiaoshang as well? The reflected years muttered in his heart, but he didn't shatter Unsworn Sword's beautiful fantasy. He immediately began to assign people to be on guard. Mages, masked mages, black-robed mages, masked mages with purple longswords, black-robed masked mages with purple longswords. The group of people who combined these characteristics were all determined to be high-risk groups by the reflected years. Chapter 684. After leaving Reigning the Four Seas encampment, Gu Xiaoshang asked the Han family young master curiously, why aren't we waiting with them for Qianli and Sword Demon to appear? We're just here to deliver a message? That was what she thought at first, but the Han family young master didn't do that. Gu Xiaoshang was a man of his word. He said that Han family young master would be in command, and he didn't ask about the process. He only asked about it afterwards. We won't be able to defend them with our lives. Those two still have some brains. They'll scout and look for an opportunity. We can't let them detect our presence. We just need to pay attention in secret, and quietly wrap them up. Han family young master said. Then why tell Sword of No Oath? If Reigning the Four Seas lets their guard down, won't they have a higher chance of appearing? Gu Xiaoshang said. The problem is that they'll definitely guess that I'll ambush them here, so if Reigning the Four Seas isn't on guard, it'll become an obvious trap. Han family young master said. Are you sure they know that much? Of course. Han family young master said confidently. Because we both have a good friend who likes to play both sides. Han family young master said as he sent a message to Brother Yu, wanting to find out if there were any new developments with Gu Fei and Sword Demon. However, he received a cold reply saying, the other party's message reception has been turned off. Damn it, they actually dare to reject my message. Han family young master fiercely muttered. Brother Yu would definitely cry until dawn if he knew about this situation. It turned out that he had offended them no matter what. What about now? All we can do is wait, right? Gu Xiaoshang asked. Brother Yu turned off the message. This made the Han family young master feel helpless. He said helplessly, I originally wanted to find out more about those two through this good friend of mine. Who knows, we might be able to find out some of their movements. I didn't expect this good friend of ours to have a firm stand. This time, he's determined not to help either side. Who's your friend? Gu Xiaoshang couldn't help but be curious. Just a rookie. Han family young master said. Tears streamed down Brother Yu's face. Would it kill you to let my name be exposed? Our people will now be divided into 3 groups. We will go to the 3 coordinates of XXXX, XXXX, and XXXX respectively. He took off his guild emblem. Even if you see these two, do not panic, and do not attack without receiving instructions. They will not realize that you are a match for them. Otherwise, once they realize that something is amiss and start to flee, it will be very difficult for us to catch up with them given their speed. What's their movement speed? Someone in the colorful clouds wasn't convinced. Naturally, he was very confident in his own movement speed. Han family young master glanced at the person who spoke. It's useless to just run fast. How much health do you have? Health? That's a lot of health. Are we going to chase after them and kill them? Han family young master said. Then we can stall for time and wait for everyone to catch up. The other person said. I've never heard of being killed in an instant being considered a way to stall for time. How do we stall for time? Do we stall for 1 second each? The other person wanted to say something, but Han family young master waved at him. Come give me a hand. What hand? The other person was confused. Lift me up. Han family young master pointed at the tree branch above him. Ever since he arrived in the forest, he had been looking left and right. In fact, he had been looking for a suitable observation point. This was his usual style. Only by seeing the situation clearly could he command effectively. The person came over and waved his hand. Han family young master stepped onto the tree branch and climbed up a bit. Gu Xiaoshang looked up and asked, Can you see everything if you climb up the tree? I have a tool. Han family young master took out a pair of binoculars and showed it to her. Then you're going to stay here? Gu Xiaoshang asked. That's it for now. Unless Reigning the Four Seas decides to move, let's split up into groups. Han family young master said. Han family young master was the overall commander, but Gu Xiaoshang was the one who gave the orders. Han family young master was smart enough to know that he would be pissed if he gave orders to everyone right after he had just joined them, so he didn't do it. The strategy was basically explained to Gu Xiaoshang. Then Gu Xiaoshang would go and organize everyone. Everything was done in an orderly manner. Then we'll be going. After Gu Xiaoshang split up the groups, he was ready to lead one of his own. He greeted Han family young master. Go. If you see anyone suspicious, immediately send their coordinates to me. I can recognize those too. Han family young master said. Got it. Gu Xiaoshang waved his hand and led his people away. Brother Yu was one of the spectators who knew the inside story. He had been loitering around Reigning the Four Seas, waiting to watch the show. He had guessed that the young master of the Han family would either come to cooperate with the Sword of No Oath directly, or bring some people with him to help. However, the way the young master of the Han family handled things was beyond his expectations. He had actually appeared together with Gu Xiaoshang. Brother Yu was a smart person. He knew what was special about rosy clouds. He couldn't help but praise Han family young master's foresight. As for how they managed to form a partnership, Brother Yu had the urge to send a message to ask, but he resisted the urge. I've already turned off my message, and now I'm turning it on again. I'm turning it off again. Brother Yu thought, restraining his strong curiosity. In fact, he really wanted to inform Gu Fei and Sword Demon about Han family young master and rosy clouds. He believed that even Gu Fei and Sword Demon wouldn't have expected this move from Han family young master. They might only think of Reigning the Four Seas and rosy clouds as imaginary enemies. They would definitely be careless if they met people from rosy clouds. I really want to gossip. Brother Yu endured in pain. Gu Fei and Sword Demon finally arrived at Cloud Suburb Lake, quite a distance away from Cloud City. The two looked left and right. Sword Demon analyzed from his gaming experience. Generally speaking, quests like yours that are similar to searching for clues but don't have clear prompts are usually either to find an NPC for questioning, or when you reach the map area, the system automatically prompts that you've completed the quest. Look, is there a prompt in the quest? No. Gu Fei said. Then it's to find someone for questioning. I'm not too familiar with this place. Where are the NPCs? Cloud Suburb Lake was a popular leveling area for men and women in love. Sword Demon didn't have any breakthroughs in this area, so he didn't have the opportunity to come to this kind of place. He only occasionally passed by this leveling area and didn't know much about it. There's a wooden house over there. Gu Fei looked around and pointed to the southwest corner of Cloud Suburb Lake. There was a simple wooden house by the lake. It was the only sign of life in this wilderness. Let's go take a look. Sword Demon walked in that direction. Gu Fei saw that there were almost waist-high reeds all around and hurriedly reminded Sword Demon. Be careful not to step on people. People? Sword Demon didn't understand. If you don't believe me, watch. Gu Fei took off his clothes but didn't take his sword. He raised his hand and chanted a spell towards the dense reeds in front of him. Suddenly, flames shot into the sky. 3 pairs of men and women jumped out of the reeds in an instant. Their reactions were all different. One pair looked around blankly, one pair ran away in panic without looking back, and the other pair was already cursing loudly. He looked around and stared at Sword Demon. The male player shouted, That thief, did you see who it was? Sword Demon was startled and subconsciously turned his head. Gu Fei was gone. He glanced down and saw Gu Fei also crouching in the reeds. He made a shush gesture and Sword Demon could only cover for him. I didn't see him. With this curse, countless heads popped up from the reeds and looked around to find out what was going on. Even 2 heads popped up less than 5 meters from Sword Demon, scaring Sword Demon. Did you see it? Gu Fei messaged Sword Demon. That's awesome. Everyone has their own pursuits, Gu Fei said. Yes. Stop messing around and call me, Gu Fei said. After these ambitious players popped their heads out, they gradually disappeared back into the water. The reeds by the lakeside returned to their previous tranquility. Sword Spectre called out to Gu Fei and pointed in a certain direction. Let's go that way. The place Sword Demon pointed to was next to the lake. There was mud and water here, so it was unlikely that anyone would seek an artistic conception here. Sword Demon's kindness could be seen. Back then, Gu Fei was afraid of stepping on someone, so he used his staff as a guide stick to randomly knock around in the reeds. As the two continued in the direction of the wooden house, Sword Demon said worriedly, "Will there be NPCs crouching in the reeds like this? That won't be easy to find. It's good that I can get in touch with Brother Yu. He probably knows a bit more." Gu Fei only knew this one thing about the Cloud Suburb Lakeside. How much more could he be expected to know? The two of them walked around a quarter of the lake, and finally reached the small wooden house. This small wooden house was also in disrepair, and was so close to the water vapor. Before entering, there was already a musty smell. There was a fireplace in the house, a collapsed bed, an empty bookshelf, and a desk covered in a thick layer of dust. In front of the desk was a pile of wood fragments. It looked like it used to be a chair. It was clear at a glance, but Sword Demon didn't give up so quickly. Behind the bookshelf, the cracks in the collapsed bed, the drawers of the writing desk, and in the end he directly stuck his head into the fireplace to observe the chimney. There's no need to do this, right? Gu Fei was amazed at Sword Demon's meticulousness. Wait, there seems to be something. Do you have any light? Sword Demon's voice came from the fireplace. Really? Gu Fei quickly took out a lantern, lit it, and stuffed it into Sword Demon's hands. Sword Demon carried the lantern in and after a while he said, "Where did you get this thing?" "Xia Fog City. Yin Xiaozhu sent it to me before I left," Gu Fei said. Oh there. Illumination was a local product of Xia Fog City. The players there often carried light to mark their location in the fog. Torches were obviously the simplest, but the players couldn't be so simple. Gradually, some people began to make things like lanterns, which could be regarded as accessories in their hands. More exquisite were some of the elemental gems in the game. They were made into pendants and hung around the neck or waist. They were very popular in Xia Fog City. It was said that in Xia Fog City, many fashionable men and women began to use lantern language to communicate, creating a unique romantic atmosphere for Xia Fog City. What did you find? Gu Fei wasn't interested in these things. It's hanging on the fireplace. It seems to be a piece of paper, Sword Demon said. What kind of discovery is this? Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that Sword Demon had found some kind of secret mechanism. Sword Demon's tone was very serious. This is a game. Everything is designed by the program. A piece of paper hanging on the chimney wall for no reason was naturally set up. Maybe someone threw it, and it accidentally floated into the chimney. You see, there are a lot of players here. There will probably be a lot of waste paper. Maybe someone didn't pay attention to the environment and casually threw it, so it floated into the chimney. Gu Fei sat on the table that Sword Demon had just wiped clean during his research and joked. Get it down and you'll know. Give me something longer, a staff or something, Sword Demon said. Gu Fei pulled out a staff and handed it to Sword Demon. Sword Demon tossed and turned again and finally came out. He held half a piece of paper in his hand and couldn't wait to study it. Gu Fei went over to take a look. The paper was dry and brown, but it wasn't caused by being left out for a long time. Instead, it had been baked at a high temperature for a long time. There was only half of the paper, and there were obvious burn marks on half of it. What's drawn on it? Gu Fei saw that there was a pattern on the paper. Sword Demon held it and wanted to see it too. You go wash your face first. Gu Fei couldn't help but say. He climbed around the chimney. Everyone could imagine what it looked like. In the words of Sword Demon, the ashes were also a program design. No hurry. Sword Demon was also a person with a goal. The story of this piece of paper should be like this. It was originally thrown into the fireplace to be burned, but the airflow generated by the high temperature blew it up. Later, it got stuck in the chimney and didn't finish burning, so it became what we see now. As for the circles and crosses on this picture, I need a game expert like you to analyze it, Gu Fei said. Sword Demon looked at the circles and crosses thoughtfully. Suddenly, he reached into his pocket, took out a large piece of paper, and spread it out on the table. What? Gu Fei couldn't help but ask. Map Cloud City, Sword Demon said, pointed to a place above, and took the half piece of paper. Look, this picture, doesn't it look like Cloud Suburb Lake? Gu Fei looked at it a few times and quickly pointed out 7 or 8 places that were different. Of course, it can't be all the same. The map was hand-drawn by the players. I don't think they put too much effort into it. This was made by the system, so of course it's more accurate. We'll know after we look at the different places. The sword ghost eagerly ran out with a small piece of paper and a map. There were rough coordinates on the player-made map, and the so-called scale was marked on it. It only took a little bit of calculation to figure out the approximate coordinates of the area they were looking for. Sword Demon chose the nearest one and quickly found it. He held the piece of paper and looked left and right, gradually becoming confused. Looking at the map and looking at it were really not the same thing. Looking at the map, there was a curve here, but when it came to the ground, Sword Demon saw in curves. Chapter 685. No matter what, there is such a bend here. But look, the player didn't mark it on this map. It's on this paper, Sword Demon said. Gu Fei also looked at it carefully, and then looked at the surrounding terrain. In the end he said, I think it's because the scale of the player's map is relatively small, and the scale on this broken piece of paper is relatively large, so this place is more detailed. And then the place marked with the X is here, Sword Demon said as he held up the paper and continued to walk forward, referring to the terrain. After a while, the two of them arrived at the place marked with the X on the broken paper. The lines along the lake here were much simpler. Sword Demon looked at the map and was really pleased. It's here. Look, it's not bad at all. Sword Demon pointed at the lines on the paper and said. Then this X, isn't it in the water? After Gu Fei said this, the two of them looked at the lake together. The blue waves rippled and there was no sign of sex. Is it under the water? Sword Demon said. Gu Fei spread his hands. Then I'm at my wit's end. I don't know how to swim. Sword Demon picked up a stone and threw it into the middle of the lake. With a muffled sound, the stone sank. Sword Demon also shivered. I think it's not enough to just swim. You have to know how to dive. What's the difference between this and swimming? Swimming is activity on the surface, diving is activity under the water, Sword Demon said. It looks like you don't know how to swim, Gu Fei said. With my skills, if I'm not careful, I can quickly go to the bottom of the water. However, that's not called diving, it's called drowning. Sword Demon smiled bitterly. Then do you have any friends? Gu Fei asked. There is, but I can't contact them right now, Sword Demon said. Oh, who? Gu Fei asked curiously. You know them too, Deepwater, Sword Demon said. Gu Fei suddenly understood. Oh, as the name suggests. Why didn't I think of this idea? I heard him say that he even has a diving certificate, said the Sword Demon. Even so, I can't help you now. Gu Fei sighed. And there's no diving equipment in the game, right? Sword Demon said. How would I know? The two of them squatted by the lake, worried. The Sword Demon held the piece of paper in a daze. His goal was right in front of him, but he encountered such a problem. If it was a normal MMORPG, there wouldn't be such a thing. If there was water, you would go in. There were cases of drowning, but the system would give you a breathing bar to pay attention to. However, this was not the case in the parallel world. It was a real simulation. If you don't know how to swim, you can just wait to drown. I'll swim to this position first, Sword Demon said. Okay. Gu Fei agreed, so he watched the Sword Demon go into the water. The Sword Demon was really a kind person. What he meant before was that his swimming skills weren't that good. Now that he saw it, it was indeed true. After entering the deep water area, his forelimbs desperately flopped around. It was the famous dog paddle style. The waves were churned by him, and he couldn't even be seen. After flopping around like this, the Sword Demon came back with the waves. He went ashore and wiped the water off his face. There's nothing on the water, but there seems to be something under the water. Something what? I can't see it clearly. I really have to dive down, but I don't think it's too deep. It's at most 3 or 4 meters. Sword Demon said. I see. I have an idea, Gu Fei said. What idea? Sword Demon asked. Hug a rock and sink down, Gu Fei said. If I go down, I won't be able to come up, Sword Demon said. Don't worry. I'll tie a rock to your body and you can hold your breath for a while. If you can't hold it, send me a message and I'll pull you up, Gu Fei said. Can you pull me up? Sword Demon expressed his doubt. I'll find someone to help, Gu Fei said. Where? Sword Demon asked. It's not easy to find someone. Gu Fei put away his equipment and randomly threw spells while shouting. Is there anyone? Is there anyone? How could there be no one in the reeds? At that time, a pile of reeds was blown up. This time Gu Fei didn't hide. He endured the scolding and said with a smile, which kind person can come and help? Most people wanted to kill him. It was good enough that they didn't come over and attack him. How could they be in the mood to help? They all glared and shouted that they didn't have time, so they went back into the reeds. But there were many kind people in the world. Some players asked what was going on. Gu Fei roughly explained his intentions. It was that Sword Demon went into the water, and if he couldn't hold it up, he would need everyone to help pull him up. Some players felt that it was interesting and expressed their willingness to help. Gu Fei repeatedly thanked them. He took out a rope from his pocket and prepared to tie it around Sword Demon's waist. After all, this wasn't as common as PK. Sword Demon was a bit nervous and looked at Gu Fei. You're not playing with me, are you? Of course not. Gu Fei threw the rope to Sword Demon. Tie it tightly. Sword Demon took the rope and hesitated for a moment. He was about to tie it around his waist when he suddenly thought of something. His eyes lit up. No, I can't go. Why? Gu Fei was puzzled. Sword Demon wasn't the kind of person who would back down. You see, this mission is actually yours. If this step is triggered by the person doing the mission, what's the point of me going down? Sword Demon said. This was very reasonable. Gu Fei was startled. Didn't you take out that piece of paper? But you're the one who did the insurance, right? If I go, there'll be nothing. We'll have to wonder if it's because I'm not the person doing the mission. You'll have to go down again, so it's better if you just go in one go. Sword Demon said. I don't know how to swim. What do you need water for? Hold a rock and sink. If you can't do it, send me a message and we'll pull you up. Sword Demon sent Gu Fei's exact words back. Gu Fei was speechless, but no matter how he looked at it, he felt like he had been made a fool of. Sword Demon threw the rope back. Tie it tighter. You're not playing with me, right? The two people's roles were completely swapped. How could I? Sword Demon said seriously. Then he went over to express his gratitude to the few players who helped. Thank you, brothers. You're welcome. What kind of mission is this? A player asked. City War, Sword Demon said. Oh, these were all wild players. City War had nothing to do with them. Once they heard that it was related to City War, they didn't have any thoughts of coveting it. They all approached the end of Sword Demon's rope. Where are the rocks? Sword Demon looked around. You want to increase the weight and then sink to the bottom, right? Take my sledgehammer. A zealous warrior offered something. Sword Demon took it and looked at it. It was a trash whiteboard, but the weight was definitely not fake. Weight had nothing to do with the level of the equipment. Both low-level and high-level equipment had light and heavy weights. The game also had to be designed in line with science. Things that were put in the pocket couldn't be added to calculate the weight. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in line with science. Weight was calculated based on what was on the surface. In other words, this sledgehammer had to be heavy in Gu Fei's hand. If it was put in the pocket, the weight would be different. This is good. Sword Demon nodded. He handed it to Gu Fei and said, "When you're ready for us to pull, you put the sledgehammer in your pocket." "It's fine to throw it away," the warrior said generously. Gu Fei had already tied the rope. Then he thought of a problem. "But that position isn't on the shore. How do I get there? Do I walk under the water?" Immediately, a zealous participant came up with a plan. "First, hold a piece of wood and float over. When we reach the position, let go of the wood, take the axe, and sink to the bottom." "How are you so smart?" Gu Fei looked at the person expressionlessly. "Haha, I'm going to find a piece of wood." The person ran away. "What, brother? You don't know how to swim?" The player who provided the sledgehammer was puzzled. "No," Gu Fei said. "Then find someone who knows how to swim." The sledgehammer player said. "His mission." Sword Demon pointed at Gu Fei and said, "Come on. You can do it." The sledgehammer player patted Gu Fei's shoulder. "The piece of wood is coming." In just a short while, the player had dug out a piece of wood from the mud by the lake. It was a tree stump that had floated over from who knew where. Can it still float? Gu Fei looked at the tree stump and felt that it wasn't safe. "It's okay." The player threw the piece of wood into the water. The wood swayed, but it did float. "It won't sink if I hold it, right?" Gu Fei asked. "Don't worry," someone said. "We'll pull you up. Go, go." Everyone was enthusiastic. Gu Fei bravely went out, entered the water, grabbed the wood, and pushed into the deep water. The wood really didn't sink, but at this time, Gu Fei's feet had no roots and he hugged the wood tightly. The players on the shore gave ideas. Some called paddling with their hands, while others called kicking with their feet. An emotion called despair rose in Gu Fei's heart. Sword Demon didn't stay idle either. He loudly pointed out the direction to Gu Fei. "Left, left, left. Left, it's left." After shouting for a long time, there was no response. Sword Demon thought that Gu Fei couldn't hear him, and sent another message. "It's crooked left. I know, let me study it. Have you ever paddled with a piece of wood?" Gu Fei was angry. "Oh." Sword Demon calmed down. Fortunately, stamina consumption in the game was very slow. Gu Fei didn't feel tired holding the wood and studying it. After a while, he finally figured out something, and began to move forward with the wood in his arms. Warm applause erupted from the shore. Okay, it's in place. Don't drift forward anymore." The commander, Sword Demon, spoke again. However, Gu Fei drifted forward as if he didn't hear it. Sword Demon thought that he couldn't hear it again, and quickly sent another message. Gu Fei was angry again. "Why do you stop? Let me study it." "What are you stopping for? Take out the hammer and put the wood down." "It's sinking," Sword Demon said. Gu Fei agreed. He was also a straightforward person. He waved his hand, took out a hammer, and placed it on the log. With a grumble, not even a bubble appeared. Only half of the log was left floating on the water, and it continued to float forward. Gu Fei was a true martial arts master who cultivated both internal and external cultivation. He could hold his breath for a lot longer than ordinary people. He didn't seem to panic when he sank into the water. He just didn't dare to open his eyes. Later, he thought that it was just a game. What was there to worry about? He made up his mind and opened his eyes. There was a stinging pain. The water suddenly hit his eyes, and it was still a little stinging. Gu Fei took a while to adjust to it. He frowned and looked down. He was only a few steps away from the bottom. He immediately twisted his head and looked around. He was only 3 or 4 meters underwater. The light wasn't very good and it was dim. There was a bunch of microorganisms floating around, which made Gu Fei feel very unhygienic. After looking around, he found something worth paying attention to. Less than 2 meters away from him, there was something that looked like a tunnel. Looking from the shore, he couldn't see it at all. At this time, Gu Fei's feet had already touched the ground, and he floated a few steps in that direction. When he arrived in front of it, he saw that it really was a cave. He wanted to go in and take a look, but when he stretched his hand out, he felt something soft on the surface of the cave. Gu Fei was shocked. He used his other hand to touch it again. Sure enough, there was something blocking it. This feeling was indescribable. It was as if there was a thin membrane covering it. Gu Fei thought for a moment, then took out his dagger and stabbed it upwards. Who knew that this membrane would stretch out so much? Gu Fei stabbed forward, but it fiercely shrunk inwards, but he was unable to pierce through. As it extended, the surrounding water rippled. Gu Fei was able to see everything clearly. It was this membrane-like thing that was blocking the entrance of the cave. He couldn't stab it, he couldn't cut it, and he couldn't tear it. Gu Fei tried several methods to no avail. There was not enough time. Gu Fei's breath was basically held to the limit. He could only send a message to Sword Demon and ask him to pull him up. Sword Demon received the message and hurriedly asked everyone to use strength. The rope was long enough and strong enough. Everyone moved quickly and gradually, it was taut. Gu Fei took advantage of this time to study the film. Suddenly, his waist tightened and he floated backward. With the buoyancy, he floated higher and higher. Gu Fei found it interesting, but he had already floated to the end. The water level suddenly became shallow, and there was not enough buoyancy. Gu Fei sank and didn't stand still. He was still being dragged, so he sat directly in the mud. Then his head came out of the water. The players cheered and pulled him ashore. Thank you everyone. Sword Demon thanked everyone. Is there anything else you need help with? The good people wanted to help to the end. Sword Demon looked at Gu Fei. He didn't know what was under the water, so he didn't know if he needed help. Gu Fei wiped the water off his face and thanked everyone before saying, "There's no need for that for now. Everyone get back to work. Brother, your hammer." Gu Fei returned the hammer to the other party. Naturally, there were male and female pairs among these players. Seeing that there was nothing going on, they left hand in hand. Sword Demon came up and asked, "What's under the water?" "A very strange thing." Gu Fei described it. "This. Do you see anything in the cave?" "No." Gu Fei shook his head. "There is no light in the cave. I can't see it. It can't be called a cave. I think it's more like a tunnel. Come this way." Gu Fei led the sword ghoul around the lake for a while. When they reached a certain position, he stepped on the water and went down. The sword ghoul followed behind him. Gu Fei pointed to the bottom of the lake and said, "Look, it's blurry, but you can still see it, right?" The sword ghost took a look and sure enough, he could vaguely see a shadow in the water. Strange thing. Sword Demon could only conclude this. "I don't know what's inside. Does it lead to somewhere?" Gu Fei arrived at the secret passage in Black Dragon Mountain. Could it be that it's a secret passage that leads directly to Cloud City? If the attacking players know about this, they can naturally use this secret passage to directly kill their way into the city. It seems a little possible. Think about it. The original content of this mission is related to that civil engineer. That engineer may be the person who designed this secret passage. Then, the singing and wine pair received the mission to use this NPC to attack the city. It's very likely that if they complete the mission, they will know the location of this secret passage, and then use the secret passage to directly enter the city. Sword Demon felt that his analysis was very reliable, and the more he said, the more excited he became. Well, that makes sense. Why didn't the singing and wine pair appear nearby? Their mission hasn't been completed yet? Sword Demon was puzzled. So their mission is to use the secret passage to enter the city. My mission is to stop them. Then is my next mission to destroy this passage? Collapse it? How do I do that? Gu Fei said. The current players don't seem to have such strong destructive power. I think your investigation may be considered completed. You have to go back to the main city and hand over the mission. Sword Demon said. Then I'll die and go back. Gu Fei attempted to drown himself. Don't. Sword Demon hurriedly stopped him. This investigation mission is so vague and there's no hint. Who knows if you've completed it? If you jump, what if it's because you failed the death mission? You'd better make a trip. AI, this is troublesome. Let's go to Unhindered 4Cs to see the situation. Gu Fei said. You go and return the mission first. I'll sneak over and take a look. Sword Demon said. That's fine too. Gu Fei nodded. As the two were discussing, a message notification suddenly rang. The two didn't pay much attention to it and casually opened it. When they opened it, they were shocked. It was actually their mercenary channel. The person who sent the message was Han Family Young Master. Brother Yu, what are you hiding for? Come out. Aya, what's going on? Why can't the channel be used? Gu Fei said. Yeah, weren't we enemies before? Sword Demon said. Han Family Young Master was also shocked. They had been setting up around Unhindered 4C's camp for a long time, but the two didn't appear. Han Family Young Master was also a little anxious. Brother Yu turned off the private message, so he wanted to see if the mercenary channel was also blocked. Who knew that when he spoke, before Brother Yu appeared, the two jumped out. Han Family Young Master was also puzzled. How did they get in contact? What's going on? Can the mercenary channel be used outside of the city? Gu Fei asked. What kind of logic is this? Strange. Sword Demon also muttered. On the other side, Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle also cried out in surprise. Where the hell are you two? Brother Yu silently watched all of this. He endured. He didn't block the mercenary channel. This was because as long as you didn't make a sound and pretended to log in, you could just say that you blocked it afterwards. At this moment, Gu Fei Jian's ghost suddenly sent a message in the channel. He was so shocked that he almost opened his mouth, but when he thought about how the other side was currently opposing him, he immediately restrained himself. I heard that you two are going to assassinate Unsworn Sword. Yutian Shenming asked. Yeah, where is he? Gu Fei asked. The guild sighed. Don't come. Right now, the whole guild is waiting for you too. No matter how strong you two are, you can't possibly kill 1,000 people, right? Yutian Shenming said. Yutian, whose side are you on? Han Family Young Master asked coldly. I don't want to stay in this broken guild anymore. Let's make our own guild. Our family of warriors is not bad. It's quite entertaining. Unscathed in Battle said proudly. Does Reborn Amethyst want people? Qianli, help me ask. Yutian Shenming said. Ahem, about that. I've actually been a bit down lately. If Reborn Amethyst wants people, I don't mind you asking for me. Unscathed in Battle said. Chapter 686. Gu Fei's face was expressionless as he said in the chat. Don't even think about Reborn Amethyst. I can guarantee your position as eternal life among flowers. I'll go and greet them. Don't. Please don't. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle were terrified. Eternal life amidst flowers was now quite famous. Many players knew of this guild that was formed by a group of vulgar men. Nowadays, if you wanted to talk about eternal life among flowers, then don't greet the girls. They can't even hide from you. Why else would people like to keep a low profile? Eternal life among flowers was too high profile. He even used slogans to pick up girls. How could the girls not be disgusted? Although everyone knew in their hearts that the purpose of chatting up the girl was most likely the same, this purpose could not be declared so openly. That would be very vulgar. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle naturally didn't want to be associated with vulgarity. Eternal life among flowers was a taboo for picking up girls. The two felt that the name was inauspicious. Gu Fei actually wanted to introduce them. They really couldn't sleep for the next 3 days. At this moment, Brother Yu suddenly exploded in the chat. I can't take it anymore. What's going on? How come you two can use the chat again? Just because you two aren't in the city? But that's not right. Why is the mercenary chat only for those outside the city? When you two are in the city, can you use this chat? And Gongzi, how did you get together with Gu Xiaoshang? Brother, you had been holding it in for a long time. Wow, what a heavy taste. I didn't think that Gongzi's taste was on par with Unsworn Swords. Too awesome. Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle cried out in surprise. Gu Xiaoshang was a famous woman in Cloud City. She had a strong personality, so even though her looks weren't bad, It was said that Unsworn Sword only had one suitor. If this was placed on a normal girl, even if she looked normal, the number of suitors definitely wouldn't be this high. There was no helping it. There were too many wolves and not enough meat. The ratio of male to female players in the game was very skewed. All of you come and die, Han family young master said. I was wondering why you're here to deliver a letter to Unsworn Sword. So you're here with a girl to show off? Yutian Shenming came to a sudden realization. In the end he said solemnly, Young master, it seems that you're not good at picking up girls. This was done too immaturely. Why bother? Fighting like this won't look good on anyone's face. In the end, it'll be a joke to others and both sides will suffer. On this point, Yutian is right. Young master, you are immature. And Scathed in Battle said. Yutian Shenming has been expelled from the child elite group, the system said. The channel was silent. Wuxiang, what did you just say? Han family young master asked. It's fine. I said I've been fine lately. Is everyone okay? And Scathed in Battle said. The channel continued to be silent. Suddenly Brother Yu jumped out and yelled, I understand. The mercenary channel belongs to the leader. So when young master was on the attacking side, the channel could be used by young master, Wuxiang, Yutian, and me. Qianli and Sword Demon couldn't. Now that Qianli, Sword Demon, and Wuxiang can all use it, this means that the channel belongs to the third party. Young master, did you leave the guild? Brother Yu said. Brother Yu. That's not what everyone is concerned about, right? Gu Fei couldn't help but say. Poor Yutian Shenming said that the guild was boring. He wanted to form a guild with everyone, but in the end he was kicked out of the mercenary group by Han family young master. There was no way to reason with him. Gu Fei and Sword Demon couldn't communicate with each other in the enemy camp. Brother Yu turned off the message. And Scathed in Battle took the initiative to send a message, loudly mocking Yutian Shenming. I left the guild. Han family young master calmly replied to Brother Yu's question. Why? Brother Yu's curiosity was endless. It's boring. Han family young master said. Oh, it seems like the big guilds didn't perform well in this city war. Brother Yu sighed. Yutian Shenming had just said that the guild was boring. Coincidentally, Han family young master also said that. These two people were in the two biggest guilds in Cloud City. However, Yutian Shenming felt that it was boring. He was more careful to find a way out first. Han family young master was more carefree. He wanted to get rid of this boring thing first. Then what do you plan to do? Brother Yu asked. Kill those two guys first. Han family young master said. Alright, don't waste time. Unsworn Sword is only one of our many quests. We know that you're there, so why should we fight with him? You should go do something more meaningful. Gu Fei said. Han family young master didn't say anything. Although he didn't know if Gu Fei's words were true or false, but since they had the Unsworn Sword quest, Han family young master believed that with their personalities, they could fail the quest, but they definitely wouldn't choose to give up in the face of difficulties. This type of rational choice was Jian Nanyu's style. It wasn't the style of these two. I'm not in a hurry. Han family young master calmly sent a message. The channel went silent. At this time, Gu Fei returned to the vicinity of the main city. After the guild alliance at the North Gate disbanded, many guilds left to join the battle at the other gates. There was no need to play any tricks. Just go and kill. One kill, one kill, one kill. Who cares about anything else? On the other hand, Unhindered, Singing to Wine, and other big guilds stayed at the North Gate. This was the rational choice. After all, the guilds here were stronger. In addition to the previous wave of attacks, although they were defeated in the end, they did cause a certain amount of damage to the city's defenses. Everyone felt that the number of guards guarding the city had decreased, so many guilds felt that it would be easier to get results here. However, Unhindered was currently on guard against Gu Fei and the Sword Demon, so he temporarily entered a defensive state and didn't plan on attacking the city. The other big guilds didn't know the inside story, but seeing Unhindered like this, they suspected that he was plotting something, so they chose to wait and see. The small and medium-sized guilds saw that the big guilds weren't moving, so they didn't dare to move. As a result, the North Gate was quiet. The players from the various guilds lazily strolled around the encampment, not knowing if the city war was going to happen or not. The two armies were separated by a large open space in the middle. There were many large and small stones planted in the ground, all of which were thrown down from the city's catapults. At this moment, two figures suddenly appeared in this open space. One came from the city, and the other came from outside the city. Many players saw these two figures and didn't know what was going on. The one who came out of the city came to the encampment and walked back and forth as if he was picking up something. The one outside the city, facing the tens of thousands of people on both sides, was even calmer and walked on his own path. The catapults didn't move. Everyone's eyes widened, waiting for the catapults to blast this person into a meat patty. Who would have thought that after he stepped into the catapult's range, the catapults on the city wall didn't move at all? Some players were overjoyed. Could it be that the catapults were on super cooldown? With that thought in mind, they also stepped into the battlefield to test it out. A giant rock flew towards them, and the player scrambled to dodge it, almost getting buried by the sand that the giant rock kicked up when it hit the ground. Looking at the player, he was still acting as if there was no one else around, and he seemed to be casting a sympathetic look at him. Everyone was stunned as they watched this person walk towards the city gate. Along the way, he even stopped to chat with the figure who came out of the city. "Little Ray, what are you doing?" When Gu Fei saw Little Ray, he saw that Little Ray was carrying a large basket on his back and was picking up stones from the battlefield with a distressed look on his face. Little Ray looked like he was about to cry. This time's task is to clean up the battlefield. The stones that were as big as his face were still manageable, but Gu Fei pointed at the giant rocks. "Do you need to clean up those as well?" "I don't know. In any case, I'm just picking up some small ones to complete my task." Little Ray picked up the stones and threw them into the basket behind him, looking like a laborer. "It's logistics, that's all." Gu Fei patted him and comforted him. "What task do you have this time?" Little Ray asked Gu Fei. "I'll only know when I get back." "Oh, then go ahead." The two chatted for a while on the battlefield in the middle of thousands of soldiers and horses, and then went their separate ways. Gu Fei entered the city. As the stones in the basket behind him increased, Little Ray's footsteps became more and more unsteady. Gu Fei hurried back to the city hall and went to the guards. He also brought the torn paper that he found in the fireplace with him. As he showed it to the guard captain, he described what he found at the bottom of Yunjiao Lake. The guard captain didn't say anything for a while. Gu Fei felt that something was wrong. He might have completed the quest incorrectly. This parallel world only knew how to play these kinds of tricks. It didn't even give him a hint, and just made the players run around to buy burn points. Gu Fei was about to leave when he suddenly heard an old voice that seemed to be dying at any moment. "It's the water barrier." "Who's talking?" Gu Fei looked around and saw a dirty old man standing in the corner of the guard room. He had a hunched back, white eyebrows and a white beard. He held a magic staff that was half a length taller than he was. His aqua blue mage robe dragged on the ground, and he wore a pointed magic hat on his head. "Who are you?" Gu Fei asked, muttering in his heart. There didn't seem to be such a person in the previous few trips. "I'm the great mage Austin." The old man introduced himself. Mage. Gu Fei was very used to hearing this profession name, but now this person added the word mage in front of it, saying that he was a mage and that he was big. Gu Fei immediately felt that he was a liar. The NPC didn't know what was going on in Gu Fei's mind. He paused his magic staff and said, "There are many types of water barrier. Although this one is simple, its power when set up underwater is very unusual." Gu Fei understood that he was actually talking about the thin film that he couldn't pierce. Anyway, it was just a system setting. Why would he talk about the principle? It was just as awesome as you said it would be. Gu Fei was too lazy to listen to the great mage talk about water spells and hurriedly asked, "Then how do I break it?" No matter how strong one's strength is, his strength will be restricted in the water. To break the water barrier in the water, it is absolutely impossible to do it with strength alone. The great mage continued. Gu Fei didn't know how much more he wanted to say, so he simply sat on a chair on the side and listened to the great mage brag about how the water could restrict a hero's strength, and how the water barrier could attract strength. After talking a lot, he finally said, "If you want to break the water barrier, you need a brilliant water mage to stop the spell of the barrier." Hearing this, Gu Fei hurriedly stood up. "Then I'll have to trouble you to make a trip." Gu Fei guessed that this was another escort mission. He didn't know if the old man would listen to him. Otherwise, Gu Fei wouldn't have the confidence to escort such a chic guy so far away from Cloud Suburb Lake. Unexpectedly, the Great Mage knocked his magic staff again and said, "Everyone knows that the Great Mage Austin is a profound scholar and doesn't know magic." "Then what do we do?" Gu Fei asked. "Go and find a skilled water magician to break the enchantment," the Great Magician said. "Where am I going to find one?" Gu Fei was anxious. The Great Mage pretended to be deep. Go quickly." The speechless Gu Fei turned his head to the guard captain, hoping to get some hints. The guard captain was also full of affection as he looked at Gu Fei and said, "Please." The system didn't give a clear hint. In terms of gaming, Gu Fei was a rookie. He quickly reported the information to his friends, but the mercenary channel became hostile at this time and couldn't be used. Gu Fei woke up. It turned out that the mercenary channel was divided like private messages. For example, Gu Fei was currently in the city, so he couldn't contact the third-party comrade Brother Yu outside the city. So Gu Fei could only send a message to the Sword Demon and explain the situation of the mission. "Water mage? Is it possible to find a water mage?" Sword Demon guessed. "It can't be that simple, right? If we find a water mage, who knows how to break that barrier?" "What's a water barrier?" Gu Fei said. "I've never heard of it either." Sword Demon said, "AI, this stupid mission. How are things on your side? Is there any movement from Sword of No Oath?" Gu Fei asked. "The unhindered 4C security is quite tight. With 1,000 people, there's no chance to make a move. I think we can only wait for them to move, like when they're attacking the city. Only when they're scattered will we have an opportunity." "Then let's wait. Is there any movement from Gongzi?" Gu Fei asked. "I think they're not far from here. I'll walk around and take a look." "Then what about my mission?" "How would I know? I don't even know where to find Little Bottle Cap," Sword Demon said. He also had a mission from the Assassins Union to assassinate the guild leader, Little Bottle Cap. Because the target was too lowly, it was very difficult. There were two sides to this matter. Sword of No Oath was difficult to assassinate, but they were easy to find. Nameless players were easy to kill, but they couldn't be found. A water barrier, a water mage. Gu Fei sighed. His level of knowledge was too low. He had no idea how to solve this problem. Sword Demon was an assassin. Because of PvP, he had researched many classes, but his knowledge wasn't too deep. Yutian Shenming might know more about mages than him, but he couldn't contact him. He originally had a mercenary group, but it was kicked out by the Han family young master. But even if he didn't kick it out, he wouldn't dare to say it in the mercenary group. With the Han family's young master watching, it might be a bad idea to let him take a look. Gu Fei glanced at his friend list, Drifting. He noticed this name. This was no doubt a high-level mage player, and he was also a water mage. He was also running around. Maybe he didn't have a guild and was a savage? Gu Fei thought. He quickly went out of the main city and tried to in the mercenary channel. Seeing that the message came out, he quickly sent a message to Drifting and asked, "Is there a guild?" Drifting replied very quickly. He wrote, "How can you send me a message?" As soon as Gu Fei saw the content, he immediately understood and asked, "Which faction are you from?" "Vagrant Society. What about you?" "Guard." "What's that? I just have to go to a few more cities to join?" Gu Fei guessed from the literal meaning. "Who knows, we're all muddle-headed. Once the city war starts, the three of us are all in the city. Hundreds of thousands of people are outside the city, and we can't even get the news." "You too, right?" "Yeah. Why are you looking for me?" Drifting felt that Gu Fei wasn't contacting him out of boredom. "I need to ask you something. Water Ward. Do you know this spell?" Gu Fei asked. "Aren't you an electric mage?" Drifting asked. "I have a quest that requires me to break a water barrier. I need to find a water magician. Do you understand?" Gu Fei asked. What kind of ward? Under the water, a house. I don't know what it is, but it's soft. You can't push it, and you can't cut it with a knife, Gu Fei said. Oh, I know. Heh, it sounds mysterious, but it's actually very simple. Isn't the ward soft and unbreakable? You just need to find a water mage who can cast a spell on the ward, and it will be frozen. Then break the ice, and the ward will be broken. It's that simple, Drifting said. Can I use a weapon with a freezing effect? Gu Fei asked. That won't work. That kind of spell can only slow down the enemy. It has to be a spell that can freeze the enemy completely, Drifting said. Who knows this kind of spell? You. I don't know. Strange Eye in Xiaoyu City knows, Drifting said. Oh. I don't know if it's convenient for her to come, Gu Fei mumbled. I can't even send a message. How can I contact her? Drifting sighed. I don't think she has a guild, Gu Fei said. Yeah. What's wrong? Drifting asked. Uft. You haven't left the city, right? You can send a message to a third party without a guild. Gu Fei looked at Drifting with disdain. Really? Drifting was shocked. He hadn't left the city, but he could blow people up with spells from the top of the city wall. It was safe and economical. There was no need to rush out of the city to fight. Is there something behind this third party? Drifting mumbled. Go figure it out yourself. Gu Fei said. If he remembered correctly, Drifting was also a schemer who was not very kind. After sending the message to Drifting, Gu Fei contacted Strange Eye. Do you have a guild? No. Why? Strange Eye replied. Oh, I need your help. If it's convenient for you to come to our Cloud City, I'll pay for your return ticket, Gu Fei said. Oh, okay, Strange Eye said. Wait here. Gu Fei was outside the city gate. He took 2 scrolls and set the coordinates of one. Then he sent them to Strange Eye's mailbox. Ever since he had money, Gu Fei had made a lot of teleportation scrolls. If he didn't bring 5 or 8 scrolls with him, he would be too embarrassed to say hello to Slim Waist Dancer. I sent it. Take it. Gu Fei said. Okay. Strange Eye said. Gu Fei waited at the location where he had set the coordinates. Not long after, he saw a teleportation array glowing with white light suddenly appear beside him, and 2 figures appeared together in the array. Hi, Yin Xiaozhu made a face at Gu Fei. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.